Quite get it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and call to order this meeting of the Santa Barbara Unified School District's Board of Education for Tuesday, March 11th, 2014. And we are going to go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Cash.
Please stand. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Muy buenas tardes, soy Rafael Santana. Si alguien necesita los aparatos para traducción en español, con gusto los atendemos aquí en la próxima sala, aquí por estas puertas. Gracias.
Thank you very much. And we also have headsets available for the hearing impaired. If you need a headset, you can ask at our side table here. Item C5, introductions, proclamations, presentations, or recognitions. Dr. Cash.
Thank you very much, Madam President. We have Tabby Magner, the ASB President from Dos Pueblos High School, is here to present the student report.
All right, beginning with La Cuesta High School, their WASC review went into progress on March 9th to the 12th. The students participated in a cleanup day for community service. They have been having field trips to the Museum of Art, SBCC, as well as UCSB. Seniors are beginning to take the SBCC placement tests. On March 7th, awards for students getting straight A's were given and students who demonstrated citizenship and ethnic values. At Alta Vista, the Quetzal classes completed their unit and went on a trip to Hertz Castle. Gardening club at La Colina is going strong. PLCs are working on the Common Core and project-based learning. At San Marcos on February 21st and 22nd, San Marcos Madrigals were the only local group selected to perform for the American Choir Directors Association, one of the largest professional organizations for the choral arts. The group will perform at Thess Parker Resort and at the Granada Theater. Several San Marcos students were also selected for the ACDA Honor Choir, which also performs during the conference. 3 San Marcos winter athletic teams qualified for CIF, and they were boys basketball, girls soccer, and girls water polo. Girls water polo had their most successful season in school history, winning Channel League championship and advancing into the quarterfinals and the championships. A student at San Marcos, Barry Collis, won the zone level Lions Club speech contest, and she won against students from Carpinteria and Santa Barbara, and now advances to the region level, where she gets the opportunity to compete for over $2,100,000 in scholarships. The San Marcos head football coach, Anthony Limbaugh, was awarded the Semper Fi Award by the U.S. Marines, and Coach Limbaugh was given the award by the Marines because he is a coach who takes the values of courage, honor, and commitment and makes it his personal mission to develop students and athletes who are future leaders of this country. The beginning of the California Arbor Week was celebrated at San Marcos through a community service event sponsored by Goleta Valley Beautiful this past Saturday, and students provided tree care for 35 trees planted by GVB over the last 10 years. At Santa Barbara, they just had their last all grades dance of the year, which was their black and white themed winter formal, and it was at a new location, and it was a huge success. Students donated gently used jeans to their Teens for Jeans drive with Aeropostale to help homeless youth in need of clothing. Their classes raised over $1,500 in recently completed annual Pennies for Patients drive for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Their girls basketball played in their first CIF finals game since 1898 at Azusa Pacific last Saturday and won their school and won their school's basketball CIF title for the first time in their school's history. Both boys and girls basketball start their first round of the CIF state tournament Wednesday night, girls home and boys away. And their upcoming events at Santa Barbara include many of the engineering students in Melissa Wood's class recently entered a county science fair this coming weekend and are looking to walk away with awards and advance into the state level competition. Executive council elections in ASB are currently underway, and their annual Wall of Fame assembly, where they honor 5 Dons alumni, is this Friday. For Dos Pueblos, the last report, this last week was very busy with on-campus activities. With Wellness Day going around, they saw many on-campus clubs and local businesses who set up booths promoting nutritious foods and a healthy lifestyle. This coming week is the Sadie Hawkins Dance, which will follow our annual Grease Pole competition in the Greek. It is Disability Awareness Week. Several clubs will be holding lunchtime activities promoting the equal treatment of those with physical and mental handicaps. And spring sports, which include track and field, swim and dive, boys tennis, baseball, and softball, and boys volleyball, have all started their seasons. Shannon Cleary was named Dos Pueblos Roundtable Scholar Athlete of the Year. Cole Smith and Channing Fisher were named Dos Pueblos CIF Scholar Athletes of the Year. And the Phil Womble Award winner was Natalie Clapp, who is a student at Dos Pueblos also. And that is the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fantastic job. She's the daughter of a superstar in our district, the librarian at Dos Pueblos High School. And on to the superintendent's report. I want everyone to keep an eye out for MTD bus ads that are featuring Adams Elementary School artwork. The students did a great job illustrating a polluted versus a clean watershed in response to the question, which watershed would you rather live in? The bus ads will be running through April as a part of the school's Earth Day advertising and MTD's campaign. During the past week, our elementary schools have had numerous community leaders, including several of our board members. I didn't check to see if you also wore pajamas, to help celebrate Dr. Seuss's birthday as we read across America. And as I stated, to set the mood, students and teachers linked those days to Pajama Day. And I had the great opportunity to go read at Harding University Partnership School, and the first question asked by a third grade student to me was, Dr. Cash, how come you didn't wear your pajamas? So I think next year when I go read, I'm going to be wearing pajamas. So we have some first-rate theater performances scheduled this spring, and our high schools are offering Mary Poppins, Les Miserables, and How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. Oklahoma at La Colina Junior High School, and we have flyers in the back of the room for anyone. I would really recommend checking these out. Great opportunity to see our wonderful students. And as was stated by Tabby Magner, this Friday at 1 o'clock, Santa Barbara High School will hold its 13th annual, and I'm only providing a lot of detail on this because we have several dons on the dais, will hold its 13th annual Alumni Association Wall of Fame induction. And here are the inductees. Ward Kimball, class of 1932, an animator for Walt Disney Studios. He created several classic Disney characters, including Tweedledum and Tweedledee, the Mad Hatter, the Cheshire Cat, and Jiminy Cricket. Jack Hufford, the class of 1951, well, as we know, is one of the most loyal dons probably in our community, who works behind the scenes to support the school, and most recently he was instrumental in the school's facade restoration. He's also worked on projects that have benefited other schools, such as the installation of the Dos Pueblos baseball field scoreboard. John Campilio, class of 1953, a member of Ye Olde Gang Dons Athletic Boosters. He was very instrumental on the school's Veterans Memorial, as well as supporting the school in obtaining their historical landmark status. Stephen Benton, class of 1959. He went on to study photographic and optical research at both Harvard and MIT. He unfortunately has passed away. He was the director of MIT's Center for Advanced Visual Studies. He held 14 patents in optical physics and photography, and the foil hologram security measures that are used in all major credit cards are typically known as Benton holograms. Incredible. And then finally, somebody that we got to just celebrate recently, Bill Oliphant, class of 1964, longtime teacher and baseball coach, and he will be honored as well. And as you all know, the Santa Barbara Junior High School field was recently named Oliphant Field. Finally, La Colina's highly popular Walk Through the Middle Ages, which is one of my favorite days of the year, takes place this Thursday, March 13th from 9 o'clock till noon. And it's a great opportunity for students to demonstrate what they've learned about in different parts of the world during the Middle Ages. And I want to remind our community that I will be out in the community discussing the Local Control Accountability Plan. And those meetings will start the first week in April. We're not going to be able to do that starting next week. And those dates will be publicized. We didn't get a strong enough media campaign started, so we'll set them back so we could make sure we get the news out and a lot of people get to those meetings. We'll have one at Franklin Community Center, San Marcos High School, and Dos Pueblos High School. And that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cash. Board, comments and correspondence. Anything for item B7? Sorry, C7?
Yeah. I'll just make a quick comment. Conrad, it's nice to have you back. We missed the person at that machine, I can tell you, okay? Plus everything else you do, but that machine is priority. Okay, thank you. I had the pleasure of going to a special performance by Adelante and Franklin. How many students here are in the dance team for Santa Barbara Dance Institute? Yeah, you guys were fantastic. I loved it. I loved the attitude. I loved everything you guys did. So thank you very much. It was a great opportunity to see what these kids learned. Fastest group ever. Usually it's 8 weeks. They did it in 7 weeks. So it shows the power of Adelante and Franklin. So thank you very much, guys, gals.
Dr. Paz.
I just want to mention that I went to a board training on leadership sponsored by NALEO, which is the National Association of Latino Elected Officials in San Diego, with 50 other school board members from across the western United States. So it was quite an interesting experience and learned a lot. So have some stuff to share with my fellow school board members as well. And I want to say Ms. Jate did a wonderful job in terms of your ability to control that computer over there.
And as we end our comments and correspondence, I just want to say on behalf of the board, welcome back, Mr. Hundell. It's great to see you back here on the dais. Announcement of closed session action. We do not have any items to report out from closed session. We will be taking action on student discipline later in the meeting. Item C9, public comments on non-agenda matters. Mr. Herron.
Yes, we have one public comment. Kate Connell.
Thank you, Ms. Connell.
Hi. My name's Kate Connell, and I'm here with my son, Saul Natus, and Mary Johnson. Mary and I are both parents of students at Santa Barbara High. As a parent of a student at Santa Barbara High, I've been concerned about the frequent presence of military recruiters on our high school campuses. And so with the Santa Barbara High School Social Justice Club, the Santa Barbara Veterans for Peace, and the Santa Barbara Friends Meeting, the Quakers, we are sponsoring a forum this Saturday titled Military Recruiters on Our Local High School Campuses, Why? It's this Saturday from March 15th from 2:30 to 5 in the Faulkner Gallery of the Santa Barbara Public Library. The forum will be presenting strategies to limit the military presence in our local high schools and to encourage non-military options to youth. A panel of experts in the field of youth and alternatives to military service will provide information, and input from participants will be encouraged to create a consistent, detailed recruiter policy for all local high schools. The panelists include Alejandra Rishton. She is an Iraq veteran who was a multimedia specialist in the Army in Operation, I'm not sure what the initials stand for, but Operation Enduring Freedom, the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. As well as Pat Alviso. She is a mother of a Marine who is in the military. He's been deployed 5 times. She is a retired school teacher and a member of the group Military Families Speak Out. Michelle Cohen is a representative of the Great Futures Project, which provides information about alternatives to military service. And the 4th panelist is Rick Jankow of the Project on Youth and Non-Military Opportunities, who helped organize and draft the San Diego Unified School District policy regarding recruiters. The moderators are myself, a parent, and Michael Cervantes, who is a Vietnam veteran and a member of Veterans for Peace in Oxnard. He does alternative recruiting in the high schools there. Although the No Child Left Behind law requires that secondary schools allow the same access to all types of recruiters, military, college, and job recruiters, school districts can place limits on recruiter campus visitation as long as the same policies apply to all recruiter categories. Just wanted to let you know that a Marine called me on Monday asking to be on the panel. And I said that there wasn't really time for me to work with the other groups to confirm that they could be there. And I also didn't think there'd be time on Saturday for them to come and be on the
I
panel.
didn't give you a warning, but your time is up.
Oh, okay.
Can you close
Just want to
it up
let you
real quick?
know that I invite, they are going to be there, and they can be part of the Q&A. And what I want to ask you is, if the Marines are going to be there, will somebody from the school district also be there? So I hope that somebody from the schools can participate in the forum this Saturday. And you have flyers, and I have more. Everyone here is invited. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item D, acceptance of donations.
I'll move they be accepted with gratitude. There's one really good size one. Thank you very much. Yeah. Yeah. It was originally anonymous, but I think the name is on the agenda. But it was a very, very good donation for a scoreboard, I believe it was. Thank you.
I'll second it.
All right, that was moved by Mr. Herron and seconded by Ms. Idleson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and that passes unanimously. And the consent agenda, any items to remove? Dr. Paz?
E5.
E5, and that's human resources. Do we just need a separate vote on that, or is there something to discuss?
I'm abstaining.
All right, so I'll call that immediately afterwards. Any others to pull?
I would like to pull E4 and also E10, and I have a question on E10, whether or not there's anybody in the audience who is here to speak on that item. It's the Goleta Valley Girls Softball Association. Okay, thank you.
So you want to pull E4 and E10?
E10, yes.
And we will discuss those at the end of the meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the remainder of the agenda except for E4, E5, and E10?
I make the motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passes unanimously. Let's move on to item E5, the Human Resources Recommendation.
I'll move approval of E5.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Aye.
That passes 4-0 with 1 abstention. Dr. Paz. Okay. We are now at F on our agenda. We start off with a couple of public hearings. The first one is F1, the Santa Barbara Unified School District Sunshine Initial Proposal for the Successor Agreement of the 2011 to 2014 agreement between the Santa Barbara Teachers Association and the SBUSD. So as a public hearing, I am briefly closing this meeting, and we will reopen as a public hearing to take any public comment on item F1. Do we have any public comment?
We have no public comment?
All right, with no public comment, I will close item F1 and move on to a second public hearing, and this is F2, the Adelante Charter School petition for renewal. Do we have any public comment on that?
I remember 5 years ago, it was this. Remember? I love that, okay? Yes, we have some. I don't know if there's any particular order that people want to talk, so I'll start with Pat Butler. Pat Butler, followed by Janet Hunter, followed by Susan Neufeld. Each of you have 3 minutes, and I'll warn you, hopefully, when you have 30 seconds to go, you don't need to spend all the time if you don't want to.
Don't worry, I won't. No, I just want to say I want to thank everybody involved for presenting the opportunity of my third grader at Adelante School to have the finest education that I've ever seen presented in my 50 years in Santa Barbara. So thank you all for that opportunity. Thank you.
Janet Hunter, followed by Susan Neufeld.
Thank you very much, everybody, for this opportunity to speak on behalf of my family and my wonderful school, Adelante Charter School. As a member of the parent participant in the site council meetings, I'm aware of and reviewed the documentation for the charter renewal and confirm that it's all great and it's all real and it's all true. But why I'm here to speak to you right now is to put a human face and some feeling sense to our application for renewal. My third grade daughter, who has attended Adelante Charter School since kindergarten, and I comprise a kinship family. She's my granddaughter. And there's about 3,000 grandparents in Santa Barbara County that have sole responsibility for their grandchildren, and many more who are not documented. When I came to Adelante Charter School, I was received in such a wonderful way, and I'd like to comment on how helpful this school was in terms of all of my needs as a parent raising a child. Again, unexpectedly and unintentionally, basically. Everything from wonderful parent teacher-student conferences involving tender subjects such as therapeutic parenting, needs that at my age are very critical, such as tutoring. Even our campus advocate helped me grow my family when I felt that it was much more important for Rosie to have, someone to kind of fill in the gap of generations. And we located, with the help of Adelante Charter School, a big sister for her. And these types of experiences are very touching, and I just want to express my gratitude for a school that not only has demonstrated such academic excellence and proven to me and met my expectations for education, that it is really a kinship group, and confirms my belief that on a very important level we are all kin.
30 seconds.
And we're treated as extended family in the community with our children. Thank you so much. Thank you, Adelante, and thank you, District, for this wonderful school.
Thank you. Susan Neufeld, followed by Sochi Bay.
I guess you can hear me. I feel like I should stand on my toes. I am an educator and a grandparent, again, but not the sole raising grandparent of a child at Adelante School. I have taught at a number of grade levels from 6th grade in East Harlem to Palo Alto, California high school to UCSB doctoral students. So I have a good handle on education. And I've been extraordinarily impressed by the experience our grandson has had. Now, I can imagine, because he's a very capable young man, that he could have eventually gone to Washington School, which is the gifted school. He is way better off at Adelante. His educational needs are being met, and he's learning to know a whole lot of people who didn't grow up like him. And frankly, he probably would have been bored in kindergarten, but learning Spanish has made it all very exciting. So our family is awfully grateful. There happened to be no other boy ethnically like him in the class. And so all of his friends are Latino, and he loves them, and he plays with them, and one of them is going to go to art camp with him at spring break. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sochi Bay, followed by Mariah Gill, followed by Holly Gill.
Good afternoon. My name is Xochitl Bay. I am a proud parent of 3 children attending Adelante Charter School. I am also this year's PTSO president of our school. I am here on behalf of our lead parents. We had a meeting, we got together, and we talked about what we wanted the board to know about our school. Adelante isn't just the best school to be enrolled in, but we are also the only double immersion school in Santa Barbara. Having our children learn academics in both English and Spanish is very important and very gratifying. We are not only a school, we are a community, we are a family. I stand at the door some mornings and sometimes help out in the yard. Our students walk in excited about school. The conversation in the yard during recess is about how much they like their science program and their music class. The kids are talking about math and reading when they're not supposed to be. The way our teachers are teaching these subjects are making kids happy and excited. The training our teachers are receiving is being reflected on each and every student at our school. I am sure to say we have the best, most dedicated teachers at our school. As I said before, we are a community. Everyone works together. The wonderful girls in the office, our principal, our teachers, our students, and our parents. We all work hard every day to ensure our students are getting the very best. There has never been a school event or a board meeting, as you can see, where the turnout has been less than 70%. Parents always help out 110%. At our school, we are all on the same boat. Our goal is all the same. Our students are the most important to us, and that is why parents, teachers, and students always give the very best. We know that there is still a lot of work to be done. We will keep working hard every single day. We will push our Adelante community until we become the best school in the Santa Barbara School District. Quote me on that. I believe in this school. I believe in our principal. I believe in our teachers. I believe in our parents. But most of all, I believe in every single one of our Adelante Charter School students. Thank you.
Can you think of a better leader of the parents than Sochi? I mean, do you see what she does? Yeah. Mariah Gill, followed by Holly Gill.
Good evening. My name is Mireya Gill. I want to thank you for not closing my school 4 years ago when I was in 2nd grade. I am in 6th grade now, and I've learned so much at Adelante Charter School. My school is connected like a huge family, especially my class, all 29 of us. We have been able to do things other schools don't get to do, like speak and learn Spanish. We learn science every day, and we love it. My class is in love with reading, and we've all been staying up late at night because we can't put our books down. We take the most amazing field trips. In 3rd grade, we got to spend the night at Monterey Bay Aquarium. And for 4th grade and 5th grade, we stayed at Wistoyo, a Chumash village in Malibu. And we even got to sleep in a real ops. Every other week, I get to go on Wilderness Youth Project to explore the wilderness in Santa Barbara. 2 weeks ago, my class got to spend a week on Catalina Island at Simi. I got this awesome sweatshirt. We all got a once-in-a-lifetime experience snorkeling, kayaking, dissecting squid, overcoming challenges on rope courses. This experience brought our class even closer together. These experiences make us more alive. I know that my teachers really care about me at Adelante. Also, Senator Hernandez, the directora. Everyone challenges me to do my best, and they believe in me. In conclusion, I just want to thank you for making the right decision 4 years ago to keep Adelante Charter School open.
Thank you. Holly Gale, followed by Dr. Jonathan Lang.
Good evening. That's my daughter. Super proud mom. She's a winner. I just want to express gratitude to the board, and I know 2 of you weren't here back when the charter was first approved. But thank you. And I think we've more than shown that we are capable and able to do this. I want to thank the teachers and this incredible community. We have a community of learners, a true community of learners, where the teachers are on this path of continuous learning, and it's never enough, and they want to refine their practice and want to do the very best for the students. And it hasn't been easy, and there were points along the way where it was, wow, this is too much, this is way too much, I don't know if I can handle this, and they would push each other through and support each other, and that's really been amazing to see. The opportunities for children in the community are just incredible, and just even hearing Mireya share about the experiences she's had, and that's 1 grade, and that carries down all the way to kindergarten. And there's just this expectation that teachers are going to cultivate curiosity in kids and help them to develop as learners and to explore the world, and this idea that the world around them is beautiful and it's ready for them to explore. The families, we have amazing families who are so involved. Parents are in classrooms and they're supporting kids, they're reading to kids, they're supporting teachers, and it's a welcoming place. Probably my favorite thing about Adelante is that every person is valued for the assets they bring, and that includes the cultural and linguistic assets, and those are honored and they're held up high, and there isn't a cookie cutter one size fits all for all kids. I have 4 children, and they're all very, very different. Their needs are different, and I feel that the teachers have been able to identify those needs and strengths and meet my children where they're at and push them beyond where I had even ever imagined. There's also this emphasis on connecting children to the natural world that I love and I think is absent in many families, and so we've been able to bring that in and highlight that for kids and really connect them and connect their learning to the world around them. And I would say that these kids have a deep love for the world around them and want to care for the world around them.
You have 30 seconds. You deserve much more than that, but 30 seconds.
Well, thank you, and I hope that you see from the work that we've given to you that this is a community that's dedicated to the children and to continuous learning and improving the lives of these kids and the community around us. So thank you.
Dr. Jonathan Lang, the president of the board of directors for Adelante.
Hi. Actually, tonight I want to speak to you as a parent and not as the president of the board. I think what our community has done and what the board has done sort of, or at least the board's aspect, should be captured in the charter document that we gave you. So tonight I just want to give you a few words as a parent. So these last 3.5 years have been an amazing struggle for our community. We've really looked inwards, in terms of how we can improve ourselves and how we can improve the education for the children. And what that is translated into is sort of intense professional development that's gone through all the teaching staff. And you see it everywhere. Accountability. Professional development without accountability is is, well, it's lacking, right? You want to learn, you want to apply, and you want to make sure you're accountable. So as a parent, that's important to me. I have 2 children. I have one in 6th grade, one in 5th grade. Right now, with the 6th grader, we went through the process of looking at all the junior high schools. And I can tell you, my son is more than prepared for any junior high school. He went through, and we spoke with every Spanish teacher, or the Spanish teacher at each junior high school, and my son blew them away with what he knows, and he's not a native Spanish speaker. And it's not just the Spanish, it's the science, it's the English, it's the whole gamut. And I think what we've learned at Adelante as a family is that by learning all these subjects in both Spanish and English, that has turned his brain on in ways that you can't even imagine. And now he's actually trying to learn Italian, and my daughter's trying to learn French, and it's the doors that learning a second language open is just amazing. So I want to thank this school. I want to thank the teachers. I want to thank the community. You know, there's so many parents in this community who don't get recognized. They're just there all the time. They're working hard. They're the nameless, but they're not nameless. If I had more than 3 minutes, I could name them all, maybe.
Oh, you have 22 seconds.
So I won't bother, but I just want to thank the whole community for helping my family, helping my children, and I want to thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to keep it going and to keep it going for the next 5 years. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lang. This is a first public hearing about the charter renewal, and this is essentially an opportunity for the charter schools community, Adelante's community, to come forward and show the board that you support your school. And I think you have certainly done that, both by coming to the podium and just the presence of all of you here in the room tonight. So thank you very much. This will be on as a conference agenda item in April. So we will have a full discussion about the staff's recommendation and about the charter renewal petition itself at that time. But I don't know if there are any board members that want to make any comments on the comments at this point. Mr. Herron.
I'll just comment. First, thank you all for being here. And to the children, I just want you to know how important this is to you and your family and your future. Today on the internet, there was an article saying that children who speak 2 languages will be head and above everybody else in this world, internationally. Mm-hmm. So you're doing something that's very special. And I'll get your principal a copy of that article so she can share it with you, because it was really talks about the global economic benefits of speaking 2 languages or more, like French and Jonathan, whatever else it was. Yeah, Italian. Oh, Italian. Yes, good. So it's very important that your children are here, and you may not be at the other meetings, so I want to take that opportunity. How many in this room are associated with Adelante? Just records show that it's almost 100%. So thank you very much.
All right. Well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and close our public hearing on the Adelante Charter School petition for renewal. And I'm also going to take a 5-minute break in case some of you might want to leave at this time. So we will adjourn for a brief 5-minute recess. All right, at this time, we will resume our meeting with item G1. This is board action on student discipline case number 2013/14-19. Mr. Herron.
I will move the approval of the suspended expulsion in case number 2013/14-19 with the following condition. And I'll give a copy of this to Sandra so she can have it.
And may I just interject that this is a condition that you're adding to a stipulated agreement?
We're adding a condition to a stipulated agreement under Clause 7, adding a G, 7G. Oh, sorry about that. And his parents understand that upon the completion of the terms of the stipulated agreement, the district will place the student at the appropriate educational setting. I apologize. Okay. Also move.
I will second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. In case number G2, it's the approval of resolution number 2013/2014-38, Cesar Chavez Day.
I can read it.
Okay. Dr. Paz?
Resolution number 2013-2014-38, resolution proclaiming Santa Barbara Unified School District's recognition of Cesar Chavez Day. Whereas in recognition that as a child who worked in the field, Cesar Chavez attended 37 schools before graduating from 8th grade, and in order to help support his family, he had to drop out of school and became a migrant farm worker, enduring a life of hard work and low wages. Whereas as an adult, Cesar Chavez worked as an advocate for nonviolence and empowerment through voter registration. Whereas as a leader of the United Farm Workers, Cesar Chavez worked diligently to pass the landmark California Agricultural Labor Relations Act, which was signed into law in 1975. The act was the first in the nation to give farm workers the right to seek union representation and bargain collectively within the framework of state law. Whereas determined to make the world a better place than he found it, Cesar Chavez demonstrated that one person can make a difference and believed that the end of all education should surely be service to others. Whereas in recognition of his nonviolent activism and support of working people, Cesar Chavez was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom posthumously in 1994 by President William Jefferson Clinton, and also inducted to the California Hall of Fame on December 6, 2006. Whereas the Keene, California home and burial site of Cesar Chavez is an important part of Latino history, the site has been designated a national monument in the National Park System. The site, known as Señora Reina de la Paz, Our Lady Queen of Peace, is the nation's first site honoring contemporary Mexican American. Whereas the state of California recognizes March 31st, 2013 as Cesar Chavez Day, a state holiday in recognition of his life and his commitment to social justice in the workplace, the civil rights of all people, and respect for human dignity. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Santa Barbara Unified School District Board of Education believes that Cesar Chavez Day provides a powerful reminder to students and staff that service to others honors the legacy of one of California's prominent civil rights leaders. Let it also be resolved that the Santa Barbara Unified School District Board of Education calls on every teacher in the district to honor Cesar Chavez enduring legacy on March 31st, or an alternative March school days or days identified by the superintendent or designee, by providing students with grade appropriate lessons and/or activities such as those provided in the model K-12 curriculum available on the California Department of Education's website. Pass and adopt at a meeting of the Santa Barbara Unified District Board of Education, Santa Barbara County, Santa Barbara, California, held on such and such a day of 2014 by the following vote: 8 yes, noes, and abstain.
Any comments on this? I have one quick comment, and that is on the whereas the state of California recognizes March 31st, 2013 as Cesar Chavez Day. I think it meant to say March 31st, 2014 for this year, and so I would request that amendment.
Glad to see this is on our agenda, and I will move to approve this resolution for Cesar Chavez.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that passes unanimously. Moving on to item G3. This is the approval of tentative agreement 2013-2014, the reopener negotiations between the California School Employees Association and its Chapter 37 and the Santa Barbara Unified School District. Dr. Cash.
Thank you, Madam President. The tentative agreement was reached with both our bargaining units, California School Employees and the Santa Barbara Teachers Association. The same thing, that effective July 1st, 2013, all salary schedules would be increased by 2%, and then effective on March 1st, 2014, the salary schedules would increase by 1%.
I will move to approve the tentative agreement for 2013-2014 to reopen negotiations between the California School Employees Association and its Chapter 37 and the Santa Barbara Unified School District.
Second.
Mr. Herron?
Just a question for Mr. Tay. Later on, we have the second reading of the financial situation. Are there funds in that will cover these two, this issue and the next issue?
Yes, there are.
Great, I'm thrilled to see this here. All those in favor?
Aye.
That passes unanimously. And moving on to G4, approval of the tentative agreement 2013-2014 reopener negotiations between the Santa Barbara Teachers Association and the Santa Barbara Unified School District. Dr. Cash.
Well, this is the same agreement as we had with we entered into with our classified unit, 2% and 1%.
Board members, comments? Or a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the tentative agreement 2013-2014 to reopen negotiations between the Santa Barbara Teachers Association, SBTA, and the Santa Barbara Unified School District.
Second.
And just to clarify, it's reopener negotiation, but it's a tentative agreement. So we are approving the tentative agreement. And all those in favor?
Aye.
It also passes unanimously. And hopefully everybody will be very happy about this. Item G5, approval of one-year agreement between Hanover Research and the Santa Barbara Unified School District.
As board members are aware, we have a number of items that we simply don't have the human resources in order to get accomplished. Perhaps one of the most significant items that has come about as a result of the new funding formula, the local control funding formula, and the local control accountability plan is the need to have as much data from our community as possible in relationship to how they feel about their school. As board members are aware, there's a significant component in relationship to school climate, how students and parents feel about the school, as well as how teachers feel about the support that they receive at school. Currently, the only survey document that we're able to do is from the California Healthy Kids Survey, which only assesses 4 grade levels, and it's not really our survey. We need help in getting things like that done. We also need help in assuring that we can evaluate instructional programs quickly and effectively. This is before you as a proposed one-year agreement with a well-established research and evaluation firm for us to have the opportunity to see if the work that they do, you will see it all, will be sufficient for our needs, and if not, then it would clearly be something that I would not bring forward for renewal.
Board. Mr. Herron?
Can you briefly let me know the differences between this Hoover group and item E4 on the agenda, hiring a district program specialist? What duties, will any duties overlap, or are they two separate things?
It's a great opportunity for us to make a decision about whether we need a permanent employee in that position to do kind of the aggregate research and evaluation that we don't have, or whether we can survive with someone doing it periodically. That's only in one part of that new position. The other part, which is also important, is really providing technical training for, it'll be with teachers primarily, on how to access data and analyze data. This is student achievement data, attendance data, in order to influence or change their instruction in the class. And that's not something that Hanover will be doing.
Thank you.
Dr. Paz.
And I think it's really important to note that the way I read this particular item, that they have expertise in developing survey instruments, which
We don't.
yes.
Yes.
And even if you hired someone, that person may not have expertise in that area as well.
Absolutely correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Ms. Simone.
I have a clarifying question. So by hiring them, do we have access to their tools for the year contract, or are there tools that will remain in the district past the year contract if the contract is?
Great question. That's the first question I asked them. And whatever they do for us is our proprietary.
Okay.
So they'll do surveys for us. We'll have them for as long as the board and the community feel they're relevant.
Okay. Thank you.
I move to approve the one-year agreement between Hanover Research and the Santa Barbara Unified School District.
I'll second it.
Moved by Dr. Paz, seconded by Idelson, and all those in favor? Aye. It passes unanimously. G6, the approval of the Administrative Services Agreement and Plan Provisions with Public Agency Retirement Services, otherwise known as PARS, and Resolution Number 2013/2014-36. Dr. Cash.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Before I ask Ms. Jate to present it, I just want to, this came about as a result of really a request by our employees to examine whether or not we were in a position to be able to offer an incentive like this. And you will note that in the proposed resolution, we are only able to offer the incentive to one of our 4 employee groups, because the other 3 employee groups, it just doesn't pencil out to be helpful in any way to the district financially. So, and that's why it's worded the way it is and why it's presented to you. And with that, I'll ask Ms. Jate.
Okay, pretty good summary. The Public Agency Retirement System, or PARS, is a fee-for-service company that specializes exclusively in governmental retirement plans. PARS coordinates and plans design and perform plan implementation and all administrative duties regarding the plan. The primary objective of a retirement incentive is to increase and accelerate the retirement rate over and above the natural attrition in order to facilitate specific district objectives such as personnel restructuring and fiscal savings. The district entered into a successful PARS agreement with PARS in February 2012 and would like to again revisit the retirement incentive for certificated non-management staff. In order to achieve the desired results, the district must obtain a certain level of participation. If the required level of participation is not achieved, the district may withdraw the incentive. A copy of the plan is in for your review. So I'm here to answer any questions that you have regarding the PARS incentive.
I would first of all say, and I don't know if Mr. Tedeschi can project this, but it would be helpful to have, I think for the public, up on that screen, that benefit choices, the 3-page document, that I think it's the very last one, parsatt.pdf.
Let's see if he can earn that praise.
Yeah, all right, let's see if you follow through with Mr. Herron here. Just so that the public can see why it is that it's certificated non-management, I'm looking at page 2 of 3, the retirement projections. No, sorry, it's on here as page 2, but yeah, that's the one that made it clear, especially scrolling down to that second table, why it is that certificated non-management ends up being the only group that makes financial sense for the district to offer an incentive for, because I'm personally am disappointed, because I like to make things equal across all of our employee groups, and so I regret that it's the non-management only, certificated non-management only that this works for. And I do think it makes sense to do, and I appreciate employees wanting us to look at this again. I'm certainly willing to do it just for the one group, but I still find it a little disheartening. And I don't know if other board members have comments or questions. Mr. Herron?
Let me see. Do we have, if you look at the 5-year savings, it's $54,000, which obviously this isn't a budgetary decision for the first 5 years. Is that correct?
I would say yes.
Yeah.
That's
Do we have any intent, Dr. Cash, of not replacing some of the 30? Because as you notice, each time you've replaced one to, well,
I would have to say that this is different than what was offered in the last time, because the last time we really were looking at eliminating a lot of staff, not replacing them. We did the whole scenario since we're not in a budget reduction from the state, we're not in a declining enrollment from our local community. So we're believing that the best case scenario is that we replace each individual that retires with someone who's obviously being paid less because they'd be a new teacher.
in the cover memo, Mr. Tay, you indicate under fiscal impact, because it will vary, it's hard to understand or hard to guess, but is that relating to the 5.5% of premiums or the $5,000 minimum, or is that pertaining to the entire project?
It's the entire project, the 5.5% of the premium. But if they don't, if it doesn't go, if the incentive doesn't go, we have to do the 5.
That's not my question. How much is this whole plan going to, how much funds is this whole plan going to take from, to do? And that's, you're talking about the fee to the PARs, but how much money are we putting into the pot to make this happen?
Well, the savings is overall. The 116 includes their fee. So above and beyond everything, we will still save 116. To tell you
What's
how much...
116? I don't...
The 116,000 that they said the first year we would save, that includes the fees in it. And so I don't know the exact number that it was costing us, because it depends on how many people we get.
Okay, I guess, let me ask my question differently. The real cost is not, it's how much money are we're saving $20,000 or $25,000 if the average teacher at this level is $70,000 thereabouts, and we replace them with a $53,000, there's a $21,000 differential.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't almost all that $21,000 going to the pot of money to fund this proposal?
Not all of it. It will also cover the 5.5%.
Yeah, but that's a small part of it. I mean, is my math correct that if the average employee that they're talking about is a $73,000 employee, and we're creating a plan that covers 75% of that, and times 30 people, that the actual cost of this premium is $1.6 million or thereabouts?
I don't have that. I don't have that information.
Because the way it breaks even $54,000, none of the savings generated between the person that's taking advantage of it and the person replacing it, we're not seeing, other than $54,000, we're not seeing any of that differential. Is that correct?
After 5 years, yes, that is
After 5 years. After 5 years, I mean, if you take 75%, because it's a 5-year payout, 15% a year. I'm not objecting to it. I'm just saying, I want us to know the true costs, because we're not getting any of the benefit of this savings between the person who leaves and the person that comes in. So it's obviously...
well, it's not going to cost, it's not going to cost the district if the average scenario that they have here, if that proves to be true, because we will generate those savings, and those savings all but that when you add up all those three together, the 116, the 176, and the 54, all of that, except for that, will be used to pay for the early retirement
I think the
incentive.
54 is cumulative. I think we get 116,000 the first year. After 3 years, that goes to 176 cumulative. After the 5th year, it drops down to 54,000.
And that's because the people that we've replaced are stagnant, and then the people who we replace them with are
Move
growing
along
up
the
on the
salary
salary.
And the good news, if you go out to 6 through 10, that number gets up to $750,000. So it takes another curve up after the 5th year. But my point is, if all these people retired in the normal course of business, we would be $1.6 million ahead. But it would be over a period of 5 years, rather than all in 1 year. And that's okay. I mean, but if we were willing to hold out and wait and we've got 50 people over 65, if I read those numbers right. And so over 5 years, that those who are now 65 will be 70, those who are 72 will be 77. My guess is a lot of them will retire without this plan. This just speeds it up.
That's correct.
Yeah. And that's a good, but I think we need to understand that's what's happening, is that this plan is costing us, when you look at it against a normal attrition over a 5-year period, it's costing us about $1.6 million in lost revenue, because we would have that revenue if, in fact, they retired normally. This plan assumes that 10 will retire in a normal year rather than 30. But if that number is more than 10, I think we actually benefit, I think.
That's right.
Yeah, so I mean, it's an interesting, the document behind this plan was a very interesting read to see all the alternatives, all the trade-offs, what would happen if you didn't replace 1, 2, 5 of the employees. It gets into a lot of dollars. And so I would hope that we would look carefully at the replacement situation and not just automatically replace the 30 if, in fact, they don't need to be replaced.
Oh, well, absolutely.
Yeah.
But my guess is there'll be classroom teachers, and absent a declining enrollment, they'll most likely have to be replaced.
I mean, it's, and because it's being cut so close at 54,000, it's almost like, of course, the document says that this is conservative, and that in their normal situation, it will probably be better than this. So we can hope that it is. Thank you.
Any other comments on this?
I just had a question. Is there any survey done of teachers that are becoming eligible for retirement that the district does to sort of get a sense of retirement opportunities there?
Well, we ask the teachers if they intend to return every year, and that's the survey, that's our survey, and they tell us if they intend to return, and that's done, is already completed.
It was done in January,
Yeah.
and on that we asked them if they're planning on retiring, do they want to leave absence, that type of thing. They tend to hold their cards pretty close if they're thinking about retiring.
The mic on
Simone?
the mic.
Oh, yeah. Okay, sorry about that.
There are some interesting graphs in the report showing age versus years of service. And as I say, there's about 50 that are, I think, over 64 years old.
Ms. Simone?
Well, I just, I think Dr. Cash had mentioned that this in part was coming to us as a request, and so I'm glad that we were able to kind of listen to the request and see if we can do something. Clearly, it's, I think that the 30 mark is so important because we lose a lot more after the 30 mark, so there's a reason for that number. And likewise, it would be really great if we could do this for all employees, but unfortunately that's not the case. And perhaps in the future we'll think about what we can do. I don't think anytime soon, but you're the expert, Ms. Jate, on whether we'll be able to do that, so, yeah.
All right, and so it doesn't fly if we don't have 30 certificated non-management employees sign up for this, and they have to sign up by May 2nd.
That's correct.
So I assume that these employees will be well-informed that it just is up in the air until May 3rd, essentially.
That's correct. We have PARs coming in twice, once in March and once in the very beginning of April, and to educate them and see how the plan is going to work. So.
All right, board members, is there a motion?
I will make a motion to approve, we're an item, approval of the administration service agreements and plan provisions with Public Agency Retirement Services and resolution number 2013/2014-36.
I'll second it.
All those in favor? Aye. It passes unanimously. Thank you. Item G7, this is an additional declaration of need for fully qualified educators for the 2013-14 school year and approval of resolution number 2013-14/37.
So I have Ann Peak, who's a coordinator of certificated personnel, here to explain why you are seeing this. Again.
So you saw this exact same document in January. And the reason that you're seeing this again is because in January it was approved on the consent agenda. You as a board took action on it as consent. The Commission on Teacher Credentialing rejected it and sent it back and said that's not acceptable. It needs to be approved as an action item on the action agenda. So what you have in front of you is the exact same document, as I said, that you saw in January regarding the declaration of need for additional credentials. Those are limited assignment waivers, emergency credentials, things that they don't typically offer in any other means. So,
thank you. Board members, Ms. Edelson?
I'll make a motion. I'll move that we approve the additional declaration of need for fully qualified educators for the 2013-14 school year and approval of resolution number 2013-14/37.
Second.
All those in favor? Oh, Mr. Herron.
I'd just like to comment, I'm giving my apologies. I should have mentioned that when it happened before, because I read that in a document but didn't say anything. I was going to, but it somehow didn't happen. But Dr. Cash, you indicated that you're trying to get these classes here in Santa Barbara through Ventura, get a cohort up here? Anything on that happening?
I think
I've been speaking with the county education office. It doesn't sound like our county education office will be able to offer it, so I've spoken with the Ventura County office. They cannot come up to Santa Barbara to teach the classes.
Thank you.
But we have a number of teachers very interested in joining the consortium, which is very encouraging.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It passes unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Peak.
Thank you.
And item G8, positive certification of second interim financial report for the fiscal year 2013-14. Dr. Cash.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I have to say that we're very fortunate in our district to have such an unbelievably fantastic chief business official, Meg Jate, who has continued to do an excellent job, and I know she will credit her staff who support her and do a lot of the work, but none of this great work would happen without her leadership. So with that, Meg, why don't you tell us why we're positive?
Thank you. And I am pretty good on a computer. Don't say anything. Santa Barbara Unified staff has prepared the fiscal year 2013-14 a second interim report for the board's review and approval. The 2013-14 first interim and second interim have been developed using the local control funding formula, or LCFF, whereas the 13-14 adopted budget was developed using the revenue limit funding. There were lots of variances prior to between the first interim and the adopted budget, but for the second and first interim comparative, there's it's much reduced. The 2013-14 second interim projects a fund balance in the general fund that meets the SBUSD's minimum recommended reserved requirement of 3% for the current and 2 subsequent years. The next page, on page 2, this is the recap of what LCFF is and some of the differences regarding the new funding model. And we went over this at first interim, and if you have any questions, I can answer those questions, but I thought that I wouldn't bore you again with going over that in detail. The page 3 is just a reminder of all of the funds that were in different categories or on the restricted side of the budget that are now have either moved from restricted to unrestricted or become part of LCFF. These are all of the fundings that are in now LCFF. That equals about $12.5 million. So on page 4, we'll go and review the differences between first interim and second interim in the revenue area. You'll see a $1.5 million difference from first interim to second interim in the LCFF and revenue limit sources. This is due to a misunderstanding on the calculation of LCFF. As you may remember, we have Education Protection Account, which is called EPA, and that's additional funds that all districts got and continue to get for 3 years. And when this new calculator came out, it implied that we would get our state aid and the EPA, and it wasn't, they were two separate buckets. They are two separate buckets, but the state of California says if you're entitled to $6 million and you're going to receive $2 million in EPA, we're going to give you $4 million. So that was an error on our part, and even the county didn't catch it because I think everybody assumed that's how it was going to work, and it didn't. So that's the major difference of the 1.5. In other state, the increase is due to additional programs added to the mandated block grant. The state of California threw more mandated cost claims into the block grant, so we received more money there. And then the increase in other local revenue is the reimbursements from the Santa Barbara Education Foundation for one of the district's outreach workers, the CalSafe program, and Beginning Teacher Support and Assessment, BITSA. Moving to the expenditures on the unrestricted side, the net increase of salary and benefits decrease was $384,000 roughly. And this is due to the reallocation of some of the salaries that we had in there but became contracted services, and the payment of co-curricular stipends and the decrease in health and welfare benefit expenditures and OPEB. Services and operating, the increase is due to the reallocation of teacher salary and contracted services, which I mentioned above, and the capital outlay, the increase of new server for the information technology department. So our net decrease in fund balance grew by $778,000, and we've already explained in the previous pages why that happened. Our contributions increased by almost $192,000, and this is because we hired in contracted service went up by the new independent service agreement contracts that we have for special ed. So when we can't provide a service, we contract out the service that's in the IEP. So the unrestricted fund balance goes from $5.2 million to $4.8. And I'm going to get into the ending fund balance a little later in the presentation, so I'll get back to that. Restricted side of the budget, the increase is due to the Thrive program. Now that we have not so much funds on the restricted side. We still have some federal funds over there, the titles. We still have special ed over there. A lot of our funds in that side of the budget are the donation accounts that each site has. So that went up by the Thrive. Restricted expenditures. We had a net increase due to, we have an LVN that we had for a partial year. We had open alternative after school site funded, new curriculum specialist for Roosevelt, and 4 hourly personnel for home instruction for parents of preschool youngsters, which is the HIPPY program. So we're on page 9 now. Sorry, Conrad, I'm moving fairly quickly here, but the restricted ending fund balance is, as I said, it increased by $193,000, and mostly due to those 4 new ISA contracts that we spoke about earlier. We have 2.2 million in the ending fund balance. 50% of that is, well, not over 50%, but 1.4 million is Common Core money that, if you remember, we only planned to spend 50% of our Common Core money in 13-14, and projecting that we'll spend the remaining 1.4 in 14-15. There, down at the bottom, you'll see our local contribution for special ed is 16.6 million, continuation is 1 million, and miscellaneous is 115,000, and that's in the Medi-Cal area. So we're going to scroll down to the bottom of this page and talk about the components of unrestricted fund balance. And I wanted to point this out because when we actually finished the budget and finished the narrative, we were just talking about the settlement agreements, and we didn't feel we could presume that they would pass to put them in the budget. So what we did is we worked around with the ending fund balance. So our beginning fund balance is 11.8 million. We had an audit adjustment of 38,000, and the results of the net income is 7.3 million. So the 11 minus the 38 minus the 7.3 gives me 4.85. That's our unrestricted general fund ending fund balance. Then the 4.4 is in Fund 17, which is 4 million of that is our rainy day fund. The 462,000 is for our field replacements in the future and vehicle replacements that we're budgeting for, so we have funds when those are needed. So it brings our fund balance to 8.9 million. Then, since we are restricting those field repairs in site vehicles of 462,000, we take that out, and then the cost related to the settlement agreement for all employees at the district is 2.2 million. So that leaves us 6.2 million, which includes our Fund 17 $4 million rainy day fund, as we like to call it. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. So our lottery did not change at all, so that's good. It's always stable. There's our projected ADA for 13-14, 14-15, and 15-16. As you can see, we spike a little bit in 14-15, and then we come back down in 15-16, and this is due to we have pre-Ks coming, or not pre-Ks, but TKs coming in, and then we had in 15-16 a large 12th grade graduate, so we had a decrease. So while we talk about the multi-year projections, I'd like to go to page 141, which is our multi-year projections for the unrestricted side of the budget. It shows a little clearer than our narrative budget, and why Mr. Tedeschi is getting that up. We'll go through some of the revenue. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
There we go. So I wanted to show you the huge difference between what we're projecting. What we were projecting in 13-14 is $92 million. Remember, we had to give the state back $7.9 million in fair share from 12-13. So in 13-14, we had to pay that back. In 14-15, we will not have to give them back the $6.9 million. So we are increasing our revenue, plus we get the 6.9 back in the fair share, and then we also have a large percentage of our gap funding, which is about 28%. So that's why there's such a huge jump from 13-14 to 14-15. And then in 15-16, we're just moving along in LCFF with of course, the 6.9 is still in there in those categorical areas, and then the more gap funding. So that's why that goes up so much. In the expenditures, due to not having the settlement in 13-14, these numbers roll over to the next year, as you can see. So we had to not only add the $725,000 for the step and column, which is about 1.5%, and then we had to consider the 3% in there too. So for certificated, it costs about $1.8 million. So that brings our certificated salaries up to $49 million. This is just on the unrestricted side. We did the same exact thing for the classified positions. They started out at 13.7, then we do the 1.5% increase in step and column, and then the cost of 3% for the classified is $1 million. Now, the $567,000 is 50% of the percentage we cut from the RR&M, which is routine restricted maintenance budget, which is about 3% of your total general fund expenditures. And during the budget crisis, we reduced it to 2%. We're going to restore routine restricted maintenance. So it's in line with the LCAP, and that is $567,000 for 14-15, and then again in 15-16. The rest is just our typical increases for the health and welfare benefits, and we basically project we'll spend the same or roughly that in the rest of the categories. So Conrad, can you take us back to page 12?
Can I have a question on that?
Mm-hmm.
I'd just like to point out, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong, on the bottom of those three columns in
I know what you're going to ask.
It's 4.480, not doctor, but that's okay.
I was going to say
4.485, $4 million of that is what Ms. Jate is talking, rainy day fund. It was originally a Common Core contingency fund, I think. The second year, in 14-15, the 4.4, that also contains the $4 million, which basically means our entire ending fund balance is our rainy day fund. And you go to the third year, 15-16, of $7 million, $4 million of that is also our rainy day fund. But you can see in the first 2 years, our ending balance is almost all in that Fund 17, and in 15-16, $3.5 million theoretically would be left in the rainy day fund if you moved it to a rainy day fund. So
Mr. Herron, that's why I wanted to go back to page 12, because I think it demonstrates on page 12 a little bit, and I understand, you asked me this question, I felt like I kind of misled you once I started figuring out what you were really asking. So Conrad, can you bring up the whole page and go down to the bottom? I think this illustrates it a little bit better. So this is unrestricted and restricted. So these are both sides of the budget. We had a beginning fund balance of $13.7 million, but we deficited of $7,127,000. So that left us with a $6.5 million ending fund balance. If you look at the $4 million right below, that's our rainy day or Common Core, what our Fund 17 savings account. So what I did here is, as with the 13 million, you take out the 7, then the 2.2 is the settlement, and then the 2.088 is on the restricted side of the budget. So once you remove all of those negatives, you get to a $6.2 million ending fund balance. $4 million of that is, of course, the rainy day fund. So that rainy day fund sits in Fund 17. If we took that $4 million and didn't include it in here, our ending fund balance would be $2.2 million. As you can see, our 3% reserve has to be $3.7 million. So if we did not have that rainy day fund at all, we would not make our we would not make our reserve. So that rainy day fund, or the Fund 17 savings, is over there in Fund 17. in the SACS reporting, which is our reporting method, and CDE, they look at those two funds combined, and they say, okay, you've got $4 million here, you got $2.2 million here, you make your reserve, you're good. So what I wanted to demonstrate in the next column is that without the $4 million, we would have a $4.4 million balance. Therefore, the rainy day fund is not needed to make our 3% reserve. In fact, we have a 3.4 reserve without the rainy day fund, or Fund 17, sorry. So the same with the following year. That $4 million sits in Fund 17. We will never move it. Well, I'm not going to say we'll never, but it's over there, and we will have it there, and it will work towards our 3% reserve. We still can we can fund the settlement, no problem. We can handle the $7 million deficit, but what we couldn't do with all of that is manage our 3% reserve without that $4 million being included. Does that make more sense?
No. In the first column, the 6.2 includes the $4 million.
That's correct.
In the second column, the 4.4 does not include the $4 million?
That's correct.
What happened to it?
Because you have, it doesn't go, it stays in Fund 17. It's not coming into the general fund, but I would only have 2.2 in there for the ending fund balance in the general fund and would not make my 3% reserve if we didn't have the 4%. So in other words, we would not be able to offer this without that $4 million in Fund 17, because we would drop below our 3%. But the next year we grow. We start out with 6.5 million. All of the calculation in the next year is with the 3% in it and the 2%.
Why is Fund 17 not in the second two columns?
Because we don't need it to make our 3% reserve.
But
it's still in Fund 17.
But isn't it still part of the total available reserves?
Yes, so you can add and say that it's 8.4 million at the bottom.
But you don't do that.
I didn't do that because I was trying to show that we could do it without the 4%.
Okay, so that is different than you told me.
It is different.
Yeah,
and I realized that I had kind of told you that after I was going through this again, and I'm like, oh, I misled you on that.
It just seems strange that Fund 17 isn't carried over, but I can understand.
But it is on page 10 when you look at that chart, right? Correct? Go up. It's there. That's projected.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. That's what it is.
And just a quick question. So, the state recommended reserve of 3% came from what, remind me, where did that come from originally?
It's based on, it's a span of ADA.
Okay.
So they have a whole, if you're this and that, between this and this, it's 1%, 2%. The bigger you are, the less
more.
reserve you need.
Okay.
Ms. Edelson? When you refer to that as the Common Core funds, how does that play into this? Was that put aside for Common Core? Or?
Well, we did really well in our ending fund balance, and we've always wanted to have a savings account, and it's really for the unknown. When we were going into LCFF, we didn't really know how it was going to affect us 100%. We didn't know what the Common Core world was going to be like. Did we need more? Were we going to get more? Is this all we're going to get? There were too many unknowns. To have that savings account, we all like to have savings account in case something happens. So if something does happen, at least we'll be able to cushion the blow for a little while. And you guys have been here long enough that we've had some big blows, and fortunately we did have some big ending fund balances to help us with that blow. We've just moved some over for the savings.
Well, I would say that even just this developing knowledge about the education protection account shows that in this very dynamic time in fiscal services that you do not know what you're going to get hit with and what corrections and calculations are going to be coming up.
That's correct, and the tool that we're using, even though they're working with CDE and the Department of Finance, CDE has not developed a calculator like this. So we still do not have the official calculator, but I think it's pretty close. I feel much more confident with it. And we're going to a training on it at the county on the 27th to ensure. But I've called FICMAT several times and asked them several questions. They, I think we're good to go.
Dr. Paz?
One thing that I during my conference that I went to this last weekend, one of the presentations was on LCFF and LCAP, and one thing I wasn't completely aware or cognizant was the fact that as we move into LCFF, we are no longer going to be in this IOU thing with the state, so it's even more of a reason to have a reserve, because there's not going to be a period of time where the state's going to come back and say to you, sorry, we didn't give you all your money last year, but we'll give it to you next year. It's actually going to be, as we move forward, none of that's going to occur.
You mean the deferrals?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we are going to be on the hook for whatever happens, regardless of whether the state says, sorry, we didn't give you everything, too bad, you're going to have to deal with it now.
I think it's very prudent to be as conservative as possible, because we are in the most ambiguous time we've ever been in. I mean, what version of the calculator are you on?
I think we're on 17.
So, since July.
And all I'm saying is, we as a school district are going to have incredible control over, and this is in many ways the first opportunity in decades to have that control. But with that control, we're going to also have the full-on responsibility for it. And if we don't have those reserves for those rainy days, for everything else that could possibly happen, because it can happen, we just need to plan way ahead, and I'm glad we're thinking about it and having the discussion, because it needs to be on the table all the time. That needs to be. It's not because we choose to put something away and we want to store it away like we're squirrels storing away for the winter, but we are in many ways, because we need to have that cushion just in case something else does happen that we have no control over.
That is such a nice thing to say, I mean, I'm glad you agree, because
Yes,
I'd like to see it have about 10 million in it, because then we would be able to 1 month payroll.
1 month payroll.
Yeah.
So that just tells you how much, we couldn't hit a payroll if we didn't get any money from the state.
I mean, it didn't fully sink in until I went to this workshop, and then I'm going, oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, we are definitely on the hook, and we need to be cognizant of that every single day. So I'm glad we are having this discussion.
Ms. Simone?
On that note, one of the things that I think at some point or was shared with me was that the board does have discretion over considering actually making the percentage a different percentage than 3%. And I don't know how the board feels about that, but I would at some point like to have that conversation. Here's the flip side. We've also been penalized year after year when the numbers are too much. So how does a board member think about this? Because on the one end, I don't think that 3% is enough. On the other end, I do realize that when you have too much saved, it can actually come back. The state will be like, well, wait, hold on. You have these funds there, and you don't always get what you're supposed to get. So how does a board member kind of grapple with that?
I would say the only way the state or the feds would ever come after and say, hey, you have too much money, is if we had an ending fund balance in our federal funds, or in EIA, they threatened to do that for a while, but now EIA is in the LCFF. I don't believe that they can actually come and take your general fund and say, you have enough money in there. The charter schools do it all the time. I think Peabody has a 24% reserve. So there are other districts in our county that have 15% reserves. That's not what they require, but Guadalupe, I believe, has a required of like 6 or 7%. There are other districts that do it.
My previous 2 districts, I was a superintendent, it had a board policy requiring 6%. And so when it went below 6%, or there was a projection below 6%, the board had to take special action in order to approve it.
I I would personally like for this board to have this conversation at some point in the future about changing that percentage. And I know they don't come and take away, but you know, sometimes they don't give as much, and so that's the piece I also want to be very aware of. And the other thing is that LCFF, we're talking a lot about LCFF, and I'm just curious if the LCFF committee gets to see this chart that is on page 3 with all the categoricals. If do they get to see this so they see here's what we had last year?
They see something similar to it, but it's in relation to our 8 categories. What are they? The 8, the LCFF, or the LCAP 8 categories. What are they called?
The 8 state priorities.
Thank you.
We provided that kind of analysis to you early on, last end of the summer or fall.
But the working committee, do they get, just so that as they are...
They've
okay.
seen, yeah, they're seeing all, I don't know if they're seeing it, you would like them to see it broken down by individual category or the total dollars?
No, actually by individual category.
They do.
I don't know that...
They do see that. It's just in a different format. It's here are all the categories, here's all the money that we received, and then here's how we feel it fits in those 8 state categories.
Right. Just so that people have a comparison point to what used to be. And the last thing is I know that we're still very far away from knowing what's going to happen with the proposal for the new one-time Common Core implementation grant that they're talking about in Sacramento right now. But if, let's just say some money came to that, do we have any idea of where that would go?
Yes, we're going to need to spend it in instructional materials, professional learning, and technology.
Okay, so it wouldn't be going to this Fund 17 that we're talking about?
No,
Okay.
we need every penny just to implement the Common Core. We're working feverishly right now trying to be as judicious as possible with every penny in our current allocation. There's no district in California that got enough money to implement the Common Core a year and a half ago.
Right. Thank you.
So the last thing I want to show you is page 14. And this is straight out of the calculator. I was thinking about showing you how the calculator works, but I didn't want to bore you too much. So here's the summary page. And what I need you to look at is the total funding. It's in the blue. It's 92 million. There it is, right down at the bottom. And you see that the next year is 100. Let's go to 12-13. So 106 we received in 12-13. But the reason why we went down so much is the 7.9 excess property taxes we had. And then you go to the current year, which is 92 million, which you can see and ties to page 33 of your SACS software or report in your binder. And then the 106 and the 112, you can see that in your revenue limit LCFF on page 141. So it all ties, and I just wanted to let you see that, so it kind of gives you an idea of how this calculation works. Down at the bottom, this is our proportionality calculation, and this is based on what we received last year in our EIA funds and how much we have to increase it each year. So that 4.93 is our percentage that we have to at least increase our EIA funds, our old EIA funds by, and it's not that much. So the state of California is saying that they're going to be looking at other ways that you're going to increase the services that you give to children, even though you only have to increase the dollar amount by 4.9. They're expecting more out of services for those children.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Then I believe I need a motion.
I will make the motion to approve the positive certification of second interim financial report for fiscal year 2013-14.
I'll second it.
All right, moved by Dr. Paz and seconded by Ms. Idelson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that passes unanimously. G9, the approval of the Santa Barbara Unified School District school safety plans with the omission of Goleta Valley Junior High School. Dr. Cash.
These are back on action, that you saw them all, commented on them all. Mr. Trina is here to answer any questions if you have additional questions.
I'll move for approval.
I will second.
Mr. Trina, are you sad you're not going to get to speak on this?
No. I enjoyed my time so much last board meeting.
All those in favor?
I would like to comment on that.
Okay.
I really, maybe I said it last time, I really appreciate how you went back into the agendas and found out what was promised and straightforward said we didn't do it. I thought that's a good sign of leadership, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those pass, that passes unanimously. Thank you. We're moving to the conference agenda now. And the first up is the discussion of update on the Special Education Action Plan. This is item H1. Dr. Cash.
Thank you very much, Madam President. They finally have to move to the front of the room. I saw them sitting in the back row for the last hour. We have our entire special ed management team is here to present to you an update on the FCMAT action plan. Ms. Rodriguez.
Good evening, Board President Kate Parker, Board members, Superintendent Dr. Cash, and Cabinet. It has been 14 wonderful months since I have accepted employment with the district. How I am feeling at this moment can be expressed by the well-known saying, life is not measured by the number of breaths we take, but by the moments that take our breath away. I can reassure you that at this time, this is what I'm feeling. We, the district special education leadership, prepared tonight's special education action plan update. As we prepared the update, we discovered some challenges. One was taking an existing document that was prepared by a former employee, Dr. Mills. Second, determine the method of how Dr. Mills rated the FCMAC objectives that resulted into percentages or percentage averages for each major section of the special education plan. We decided to watch Dr. Mills' 24/11 presentation. It was comforting to note that 3 board members then are on the board today. In Dr. Mills' presentation, she shared how she calculated the percentages. As you will shortly see, I applied the same calculation to update the Special Education Action Plan. In addition, Robin Sawaski, Associate Superintendent, provided comments at the end of Dr. Mills' update. Mrs. Sawaski shared that some FCMAT objectives will never reach 100%. She indicated that these objectives are ongoing, and she noted that some FCMAT objectives will have products as an outcome. Despite 3 major educational reforms, Common Core state standards, new state assessments, and local funding, the local control funding formula occurring in education, we are making progress. First, I would like to present a table containing the 2011 FCMAT objectives that were reported by Dr. Mills to have been completed at 100%. Please note the 4 goal areas are highlighted in yellow. The action items are highlighted in gray, and the FCMAT objectives have the white background. The next table contains the FCMAT objectives that we will provide a 2014 update. This document contains the original FCMAT format and the columns that Dr. Mills inserted, which are the 2011 percentage completion column and the evidence of completion column. We added another, the 2014 percentage completed column to show the progress that the district has made. The method of calculation we used was, again, of that of Dr. Mills and Dr. Miller. The 4 major goal areas contained action items. Each action item contains FCMAT objectives. Each goal area has an average percentage of the action items. Each action item has an average percentage of the FCMAT objectives. The FCMAT objectives were rated according to the district's success in implementing additional activities as evidence. The 4 major goal areas are: 1, improve communication and information structures; 2, improve professional development and training; 3, provide effective programs and services; 4, provide effective organizational structure. John Shetler, Special Education Director, and I will present on Goal 1. Mike Stiernan and Debbie Grant, Program Facilitators, will present on Goal 2. Lauren Meyer, Program Facilitator, will present on Goal 3. Kirsten Escobedo, Special Education Director, will present on Goal 4. As a side note, we have a dynamic team. Due to our diverse personalities and knowledge, which you will soon observe, we are able to accomplish much. So with that, if you will note, in 2011, Goal Area 1, the percentage of completion was 92.9%. In 2014, the percentage of completion is 98%. This is a 5.1% increase. In action item number 1, we increased 4% due to the following evidence of completion. Barbara Keone, Public Information Officer, was provided with a handbook, Getting to Know Special Education, the General Educator's Essential Guide. She has included some information from this guide in e-news and continues to do so. In addition, Barbara has been given information about special events, activities for e-news updates. Now that the Parent Resource Center is open, our Outreach Awareness Consultant, Sherry Ray, will have the time to provide Barbara with weekly articles to be included in e-news and the website. We are in the process of uploading on the website parent training handouts and in Spanish and English. Action item number 3. We increased 4% due to the following evidence of completion. The Parent Resource Center at the district was a huge undertaking. It was created during 2012-2013 school year. Furniture, materials, and technology equipment was purchased in 2013-2014. In addition, community members donated books, materials, and technology to be included in the center. I believe, Mr. Herron, you donated some items. Thank you for your support. Special Education worked with Barbara Keone and Sherry Ray to acquire funding from donors in order for the district to hire a part-time coordinator of student community relations for the Parent Center. I would like to thank Sherry Ray with her support, and a special thanks to Barbara Keone. We have recently hired a bilingual secretary for the Special Education Office. We have communicated information to parents in Spanish and English using the teleparent message on a monthly basis. In addition, teleparent, we have created posters, flyers that advertise parent events and distributed them to school sites and key community members to share with parents. Again, these posters and flyers are in Spanish and English. Action item 4 increased 4.8% due to the following evidence of completion. In addition to the items that I had shared in item number 3, parent concern forms were created to be used after each parent training event. This allowed the special education leadership to assist parents and the school site in resolving parent concerns. Special education directors meet regularly with parents and staff to facilitate resolutions. Parent training events were provided in 2012-2013 and 2013-2014. The focus of these trainings have been to increase the knowledge of the IEP process and the role of the parent in this process. The Assistant Superintendent for Special Education meets with CPAC leadership. I would like to thank Marsha Eichelberg, Jennifer Griffin, and Kathy Abarca for their wonderful collaboration. At this time, I would like to invite John Shetler to present.
Thank you and good evening. To continue on with action item number 5 under the goal area number 1 to improve communication and information structures, we have a FCMAT recommendation that a subcommittee recommended contracting with a vendor for a centralized communication system. And back in 2011, it was determined that the cost and the intensity outweighed the potential benefits of contracting out for that. But there was a list at the time of the different ways that our department was communicating to meet that need. To update from the 2011 report, Mrs. Rodriguez meets weekly with the management staff, both as a group and individually in one-to-one meetings. There's another recommendation from the FCMAT report to document and ask parents about their needs and provide timely responses, both verbally and in writing. The special education management staff has attended the parent trainings that have gone on this year, and we will stay afterwards to have in-person conversations with families about concerns that they have, or if they prefer to share those in writing, we get back to them and address those concerns and follow up with the school sites if there are actions that need to be taken at the school. We use Sofia Rubalcava, our translator and interpreter, to make phone calls to Spanish-speaking families to follow up with them. There's a FCMAT recommendation to establish operating guidelines that require all calls and emails to be returned within 24 hours. If an answer is not immediately available, to make contact to let the person know when they will receive a response. Now that we are fully staffed, I feel like our turnaround time is much improved. But in addition to that, having another bilingual secretary in the office has helped, so that now if a Spanish-speaking parent or an English-speaking parent calls in the middle of the school day, and one of us is out of the office, we immediately get an email from her telling us the person who called, if they've shared the concern, what it is, and the number to reach them, so if we're off-site, we can get back to them in a timely fashion. Moving on to action item number 6, achieve meaningful outreach and communication to Spanish-speaking families. One of the recommendations is to require the special education department to coordinate trainings for parents who do not speak English with the district's English Language Advisory Committee, DLAC. And in addition to the monthly trainings that we've talked about, which are provided in English and translated into Spanish, we also are going to be presenting to DLAC this week and to Padres Unidos in April. There's a recommendation to revise the special education section of the district's website to ensure it achieves meaningful communication and outreach to Spanish-speaking families, to include current information about special education with highlights in Spanish. We have not yet, but we plan to upload the handouts from the parent training series that we've done this year in Spanish on the website, as well as submitting any articles to Barbara Kiani and having those posted in Spanish as well. There's a FCMAT recommendation to seek assistance from Hispanic advocates to facilitate communication. Flyers for our parent events have gone out to groups like Padres Unidos and DLAC to help with the distribution. I can tell you anecdotally, we're getting very good experience from Spanish-speaking families at those trainings, just by the use of the interpretation and the number of both verbal and written concerns that we're getting from parents at those trainings. So with that, I want to hand it over to Mike Steeren and Debbie Grant to address the next FCMAT goal area.
Good evening. Ms. Grant and I are going to address goal number 2, which is improvement of professional development and training. Just given my presentation style and some of the repetitive nature of each of the action items, I'm going to give you guys a generalized overview of it. But I did want to highlight that in 2011, Dr. Mills reported out that they were about 93% complete, and we're going to report out tonight that we're about 99% complete on this goal. As I talk about the professional development and the training opportunities that we provide, I want to break it apart into the different stakeholders that we serve. With our administrators, we started off with some child find training. We brought in the Littles, Doug and Joyce Little, to do a training on facilitating litigious IEPs. That was in response to 2 concerns coming out of FCMAT. 1, identifying children appropriately for special education services. The second being that we were having to access attorneys fairly frequently to mitigate concerns at IEP meetings. Now our principals and our assistant principals are more competent in that area and doing an excellent job from what I've witnessed. We've also trained them on the referral processes to our regional programs and some of our outside agencies like mental health. And we have ongoing training going on for them for inclusion with Dr. Wendy Morosky, which will be a multi-year process. For our certificated staff, which would include teachers, school psychologists, speech and language pathologists, school nurses, we have accessed the PLC as a vehicle by which to train every single one of them. So once a month, beginning in September, the entire team divides up basically and hits sites, and we train on a variety of topics. We started the beginning of the year with just how to write IEPs for educational benefit to get everybody on a baseline for one of the most important aspects of their job. And then moving forward, what we're delving into is more aspects of Common Core, so universal design for learning, depth of knowledge, things of that nature. This morning, I met with a couple of elementary principals to start discussing how our department can help the general education side of the house as well. We've also trained them on the same referral processes that we trained the administrators on, so our regional programs and our outside agency help, so that the referral process is far more streamlined and quick, so that the services are getting to the student faster. Then we would move into classified staff. That would be our instructional assistants, our licensed vocational nurses who serve students with disabilities. We have also used the PLC as the vehicle by which to train them, and so starting in October, we, again, would divide up the schools and we would go out there. And the topic that we started with was data collection. And we've spent the first 4 months that we've worked with them on just a variety of methods of data collection so that they can provide that information to IEP teams. And then the decisions that those IEP teams making are based upon that, which is really what they should be doing. We're moving forward with them into more behavior management techniques and then instructional techniques as well. And then finally, our parents. What we started them with was just each page of the IEP and breaking it down for them, what is a very, very complicated and convoluted document, into its most essential aspects. So we talked to them a lot about what questions they should be asking of the IEP team, what information they should expect on those pages, and then how to advocate for their child if there's disagreements about what's on those pages, or if they don't understand what's on those pages. And as Mr. Rodriguez and Mr. Shetler said, we've had fairly strong attendance at those, and we're hoping to just, by getting the word out to the community, to increase that more, and maybe pick different sites other than the district office to access people where transportation isn't as easy. As we move forward and we complete the document, what we're going to do is more specialized trainings. We know we have questions about things like assistive technology or specific types of services like behavior management or mental health, and we're going to gear our trainings towards that kind of stuff as we go forward. So I'm going to hand it off to Ms. Grant now, and she's going to continue.
Thank you. Since the 2011 FCMAT report, the speech and language pathologists have gone to the SELPA AT training, as well as many of our teachers have attended the assistive technology training. We have had many of our speech pathologists attend the American Speech and Hearing Association for Teachers Conference, where they gained many wonderful skills. We have had a nationally recognized expert in the area of articulation come up from San Diego and provide training for our speech and language pathologists in the area of articulation. And specifically last week, the training was about treating general ed population, children with articulation. So we are going to be implementing speech improvement groups on all of our campuses. Our psychologists and speech therapists have attended ADOS training, which is an autistic diagnostic tool. Our psychologists and speech pathologists have all attended a training on cross-battery assessment. Our speech pathologists have attended childhood apraxia evaluation and therapy training, characteristics of childhood apraxia training, school-age stuttering and cluttering therapy, several trainings on bilingual assessment. Lauren Meyer, our program facilitator in charge of the psychologists, has been holding weekly trainings for the new psychologists, in which she has been addressing report writing and using case studies to address other educational purposes. Her psychologists regularly attend SELPA trainings as appropriate for that group. I have planned make and takes for parents in the area of assistive technology through the Parent Resource Center. We are going to be having make and takes for the speech therapists to make materials for their speech improvement groups. We are going to be implementing those groups and inviting parents to attend to make materials to use with their students at home. So as you can see, our speech pathologists and psychologists have been receiving a lot of excellent training. And I'd like to turn the time over to Lauren Meyer to address FCMAT goal number 3.
Hello and good evening. I got to come to a board meeting last month, but I didn't get to speak, so tonight's my first night to meet you all formally, so thank you for having me. I'm going to talk about FCMAT Goal 3, which is providing effective programs and services. Similar to what Mr. Steeren pointed out in his section, the action items are fairly redundant within this section, so I'm going to hit on some of the highlights of what we've done since 2011. One of the items in 2011 that was discussed was that ARA funds had been targeted, and I just wanted to highlight that everything that was outlined in terms of the Linda Mood Bell materials and the trainings did occur during the 11-12 school year. So those materials were purchased and are at every school site, as well as at least one special education teacher from every school site did complete the Linda Mood Bell training. In regards to the items related to collaboration between the SELPA programs and the school district, a lot of things have changed since 2011. It used to be, historically, was a lot more difficult to get some of our students with emotional and behavioral disorders into some of the SELPA classes. So in response to that, the district has opened an elementary school class targeting those students with emotional and behavioral disorders. It's in its first year right now. We also opened another class at the high school. So currently each high school, Santa Barbara High, Dos Pueblos, and San Marcos, each have a program targeting that specific group of students. So that's been a great step in the right direction for us. We now have a program available for students K through 12 in that students with that area of need. Regular collaboration meetings take place now between SELPA staff and between district leadership. The SELPA director meets monthly with our directors and or assistant superintendent, and I also meet at least twice a month, sometimes weekly, with the SELPA behavior specialist to talk about specific students and see how our programming is going within our CTE regional programs. Related to mental health services, that was another issue that was targeted under goal number 3. We've really expanded the continuum as well as changed how those services are accessed. Mr. Steeren mentioned earlier that the referral process is streamlined and a lot easier. Essentially, there have been a couple of funding changes since 2011, but the main takeaway is that now every single IEP team is more empowered to make decisions about what a student needs rather than the old way of having to refer and then wait to see if a student's going to be, able to access a mental health service. We have services from counseling with a school psychologist available up to the range of having intensive social work services for an entire family unit, and those decisions can all be made on the school sites now rather than having to go through a process. Additionally, we've added a behavior specialist, and so that's something else as a district that's a new service that we didn't have previously. The other thing that we have done since 2011 to address a broader continuum of student needs is open the ABA class for students with autism at the elementary school level, and this enabled us to meet a larger continuum of those students' needs, students with autism as well. And so related to the programming and services, those are some of our changes. And Kirsten, Ms. Escobedo, is now going to talk about Goal 4. Thanks.
Good evening. It's nice to be here. I'm going to briefly talk about Goal 4. We had 5 action items that were designated as part of that goal in 2011. And many of the things that we've heard already tonight are examples that also would fall into this goal area. I'll highlight some of those again and highlight some of the things that we haven't yet touched upon. Goal number 4 is to provide effective organizational structure. In 2011, that was defined to be at 90.6% achieved. Tonight, we have achieved that at 98%. The first action item in that goal was to develop an organizational chart that included the roles and responsibilities of the special ed department and the chain of command. We have continued to update that organizational chart. We have also just redefined the roles and responsibilities document because we have some new positions this year. Program specialists became program facilitators this year. We've also added a district behavior specialist, and I have to say on a personal note, it's wonderful to have a fully staffed team at the district office. And as was previously mentioned before, we have department chair and job-alike meetings for itinerant staff, and all of the staff on the leadership team are available to meet with teachers, site principals, parents, one-on-one to try to discuss and resolve any issues that may come up. Action item number 2, define the roles and responsibilities of the school site administrative staff. The way that we have continued to support this particular action item is, as was mentioned, Ms. Rodriguez is doing walkthroughs and site visits about once or twice a week currently. Dr. Wendy Morawski, in addition to providing the trainings to our administrators, our site administrators, is also in the process right now of meeting individually with our site administrators to talk about those individual inclusion plans. Mr. Shetler and I are attending those meetings with her, looking at short-term goals and long-term goals. Dr. Cash met individually with all of the site leaders to talk with them about what supports and needs they had in terms of implementing their special education programs. And again, we've had the training from Dr. Wendy Borowski, the training from the facilitated IEP training by the Littles, and also a child find training for our site administrators. Action item number 3, define and coordinate interdepartmental decision-making processes and plans regarding special education. Ms. Jate, Mrs. Rodriguez, Mr. Shetler and I meet weekly to talk about the fiscal side of special education. And at least once a day, probably much more often than that, one person in our department is communicating and collaborating with someone in the Human Resources Department. We're also working very closely with student services to meet the needs of our students who happen to come across both of those desks. And again, our administrative support staff has regular ongoing communication and collaboration with ITS and facilities. Action item number 4, we did develop and publish and distribute special education policies and procedures, teacher handbook, and an instructional aid handbook. The instructional assistant training that Mr. Steeren referenced, a part of that training was going through the instructional assistant handbook and talking through sections of that and really working closely with the aides on that. Again, we continue to make ourselves available to meet regularly with parents and staff to try to address any issues that might come up in an amicable, collaborative fashion. And Mrs. Rodriguez has met with, as she mentioned, our CPAC leadership regularly to plan the agendas for those meetings. Action item number 5 addresses the area of staff morale, and I think that everything that you've heard tonight is something that will continue to address this area of staff morale. Providing site support to our administrators, to our teachers, to our instructional assistants, and our families is a goal that this department continues to have and is continuing to work toward in supporting our students. And I think with that, we will take any questions that you all have. Thank you.
Board members. Comments at this? Ms. DeMoon?
I can start. Thank you. It's very nice to actually see you and have you present as a team. So I appreciate that. I have a few questions. And so, one of the things is that I realize that the actual FCMAT recommendations are not, they're vague in and of themselves. I mean, so it says meaningful. What does meaningful mean? It's subjective, right? And so I think that that's really interesting to look at. But one of my questions, I mean, because you look at this and you're like, wow, there's a lot of 90s, there's a lot of 100s, or they're very high percentages. But then I read them and I'm like, well, it doesn't say, feel confident about developing strategies to ensure, right? It just says develop them, so it sounds like a checkbox. But what does 100% mean?
I'll answer that. As I had mentioned earlier, it was very challenging for us to try and determine somebody else's measurement. So the way I looked at it is manpower and the amount of collaboration that we had to do in order to accomplish the goal. For example, with the Parent Center, that was a huge undertaking. It just wasn't the special ed department. It was the cabinet. We initiated that and cleaned the basement, and then after that, we had contracted with Sherry Ray to come in, and all of the materials that were donated, she had to organize that. And then we had to set up the Parent Center, and as we were able to find funds, we were able to upgrade the furniture and add additional materials. And then during that time, we also worked with another, besides facilities, we're working with facilities. We were working with our communications. That's Barbara Keone, and she was diligently trying to find some funding so that we can have someone in there to man the center. So with that, I would say that's 100%. And we did that in addition to everything else that we do in providing services to our clients. For example, when concerns come up, concerns can easily become litigious concerns. And so it takes our team to make sure that we immediately respond and work with the site staff and with the parents to bring them back together, and to encourage the trust and to ensure them that we're here for children. I would say those are the type of factors that I know is subjective, but that I considered as I was moving along and seeing where we were at. But I have to tell you, when I got here, I did review the FCMAC report, but at the same time, I also looked at where the district had been and where they were. And as a result, pulling our team together and finally adding our final addition, which is Debbie Grant, when we built our team, we looked at each member of having an expertise. And as you could see through the presentation, you could see Lauren Myers, for example, is in the psychology area, and then we have Debbie in the assistive technology and speech language, and of course we have both our directors who are very good at resolving issues with the site, and then of course Mike Stiernan, who is our professional learning person who brings together the schedule and coordinates everything. And then of course I'm working with each one, and also with the cabinet level, and also going to the school sites and working with the principals. Are we perfect? Of course not. Are we ever going to reach 100%? Of course not. Why? Because we are a living organism and there's constant change. But we have to ensure that there's patterns or routines that are going to not only stabilize the organization, but also to encourage change. And that's what we're about. And the reason why we're changed, because we're human beings, and children, each child is unique, and so we address their needs. So that's a long answer to say why we're at 100% in some areas. In some areas, it's always going to be ongoing.
Right.
So it was very subjective.
So, well, in some ways, I see a subjective goal, and I can't fault for subjective evidence. That's just, and that was, I think you said this originally, this was the pattern that we established, since earlier on. So I think that part's okay, but I just want to be clear that the 100%, what I think I might have interpreted is that the 100% means that there's 100% effort in implementing, creating, assessing a practice or of sorts, but not necessarily 100% staff satisfaction, like you will go back and revisit as needed. And I think that that's the piece that's confusing, because you see 100%, and so there's this, I think of 100% on a test, you're like, you got an A, right? And so I don't know that this is what this is. And I want to be clear that we don't confuse that what this is saying is that there's been 100% effort in processing, or in taking 100% effort in some kind of creating, whatever, implementing some policy or some directive that it says there. And I think that piece of, there's a separate piece that this does not reflect, this document does not reflect, which is, and you don't have to answer this, but if we were to ask, how do you feel about your efforts, that actually might be a different question than your accomplishments. So your accomplishments, and I guess the quality of how you feel is you might have a different result or response to that. So I appreciate that. I do think this document, looking at this multiple times, we used to look at this every year. Or like 3 times a year, right? Or before. I realize that this is really this is the product of what we started. But then along those lines, because I appreciate the effort that's being made, how do we know we're doing a good job? What kind of instruments or methods are we, to tell us, to tell us, you know what, yay, this is the right direction. How do we how do you assess that?
Well, for example, the parent training, we do have evaluations at the end, and also for the staff training, we have that, so we can compile that. I do know the district is moving towards contracting with someone to come in, and we will have climate surveys, and through that, we'll be able to pull information. And again, we're always evolving. We can also, as a team, consider other measurement tools that we can use for the next update that we provide to the board.
So Dr. Cash, is what Mrs. Rodriguez's comment about having a firm coming in is that one of the things that the agency that was on the
Hanover, yes.
Hanover.
Yeah, their first job is to create surveys.
And that would also be for special education?
It won't solely be for special
but
education,
also.
but it will include questions regarding special needs students.
Okay, because that actually is an area that's important to me. So how do we, gather, I think, formal feedback from the participants to help us, to inform us, because I think this is one perspective, but I think there's more. And one thing that I realized that this doesn't talk about at all, and it's so funny, I'm like, wow, maybe I missed it because there's a lot, disproportionality.
It's not in the FCMAT recommendations.
Right, which is very interesting to me because I sit here in 2014 and think of that as such a big issue in special education. I'm like, it doesn't even talk about this. So I want to be clear that even this, it doesn't encompass all of the concerns or challenges and efforts that we're making.
I think disproportionality is probably the largest issue that we're facing currently in relationship to assessing students for eligibility and then providing services.
Yeah.
So
okay.
That's a big issue. That's most all of these things are way bigger than just special education.
Well, yeah. A lot of this was also talked about. General education,
yes.
Really is also talking about general education. And I do notice that some of the lower percentage, although still kind of high, but the lower percentages are areas where, our colleagues in general education have to work closer. So,
if I may say, there's another measurement that we can look at. It is the number of litigious cases that we've had, and they are down. So, which tells me that we are being successful in working with staff and with parents in order to resolve issues.
Right. And we are thankful for that. I'm very thankful for that. Thank you.
Dr. Paz?
I just want to say that it's really important to always think about this piece, and anything we do moving forward is that all of this is you're right. We are a living organism as an organization, as a district, and that just as easily as we're looking at success we have to be cognizant and always have in the back of my mind, we could go back just as easily. And I think, using measures as, looking at how many people sue us because we're not providing services to children is one measure. Having a pulse in terms of parents who are parents of children who have special needs is another measure of looking at that, and looking at climate services is an important piece. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what who we're serving is children. Are they getting the services and moving forward in their lives is another measure also. And I think it's one way to look at it too, because at the end of the day, it's the results that we're going to achieve with children that really measure how successful or what failure we've had in terms of the system. So I would also look at that as well. It's not just, whether we hear a complaint, it's whether we've had a result with children as well. And I think we always have to have that in the forefront of everything we do. So just want to put that out there.
Ms. Edelson?
I would echo everything you've also said. I'm curious on these trainings. I know there was one in January, end of January, like the 27th. Is there a great turnout? Are you getting feedback as it's happening, as parents experience these? Are they feeling, engaged in what the district's providing?
So I can address that. So what we're using in the same type of evaluation tool that we're using with the teachers. So there are clearly laid out objectives in the training, and we're asking them to rate themselves on their comfort with the topic, and then we're leaving it open for them to discuss, more generalized concerns or more concerns specific to their child. And what I do is take a look at all of that. The turnout has been it's increased with each training. I should own this, as I've done a better job of getting the word out. So we started with a poster that was at every school site in Spanish and English. Then we increased that to the posters plus the flyers plus the teleparents. And just in the last 2 months, I've started reaching out to community organizations like Padres Unidos, the DLAC committee. Marcia, I send her the flyers every month, and they're a huge help. So I'm hoping that the numbers will increase. One of the other things that I'm looking at, though, is that because we're asking everybody to come to a centralized location, even though we're offering it 2 times a day, that's not necessarily going to free people up who are working 2 and 3 jobs. And we're honestly targeting a portion of our community that is not as educated about the process. We're trying to target those families specifically so that they can be advocates for their children, so that they know what they're looking at when they're seeing the document, and that they can sit there and call out an IEP team if they're making a mistake, or to just say, thank you, I agree with this. But I think as the process evolves, I'm just going to keep looking at ways to increase the participation. Maybe choosing to do the morning presentation out at the Franklin Community Center as opposed to doing it here, or over at out on the west side, Boys and Girls Club, someplace like that, where we can access people who can walk to us, or doing an additional presentation out in Goleta and inviting the Goleta Union School District. So I have a lot of things that float around in my head as this begins to evolve. And then especially as we begin to offer more specialized versions of the training.
Right, and have those been in Spanish also?
I'm sorry, which
has there been translation at these meetings?
So yes, there's been interpretation at the meetings. The translation of the documents is about a month behind. I'm preparing the certificated, the classified, and the parent stuff all in the same month, and we're basically at trainings at least once a week. Okay. And so that's the one where I can say that I'm behind in getting it to Sophia. It's not on her, it's on me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then my other question would be about what the training is for in-class teachers to recognize. I know some of that was spoken about, but I know that, do you feel that referrals are being handled more effectively now?
So I couldn't speak to the referral process. What I can say to you is that in the summertime, a representative from one of our firms, AALRR, I think I got that right, came out to do just a generalized child find training, so to explain to administrators and teachers the procedural side of it, what their legal obligations were. What I meant, or what I alluded to in my portion of tonight, was that I'm going to be beginning to meet with each of the elementary school principals to discuss a couple of things with them, but one in particular is how our office can expand the professional learning that we're offering to their general education staff. And with the 2 principals that I met with this morning, a common theme came up with one was mindset, So the idea of the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset, and how to apply that to all kids, obviously, but in particular, because they were meeting with me, students who may or may not have disabilities. And then the idea of just how like an MTSS, a multi-tiered system of supports, or an RTI system will work, so that we're, even once we've referred a child for services, how we're getting them back into the general education classroom from the maximum amount of time possible.
Thank you.
Mr. Herron.
Thank you. A couple just quick questions, but also then I'll end with sort of a comment. Who did we hire for the resource room?
Melissa Placencia.
Melissa Placencia. She's awesome.
Awesome. Fantastic. And what are the hours?
Okay, it varies. On a board night, it's 2:30 to 6:30. She works about 4 hours a day. On nights where we don't have parent events, it's from 1 to 5 where she's at. During the CPAC meeting or the parent meeting, we ask her to have hours, I think, from, I'm not sure if it's 2:30 to 7:15 or 7:30, and she will assist us with childcare.
Childcare.
Yes.
Fantastic. That's really good to hear. One question that popped up in here is Linda Mood Bell. It was mentioned 5 or 6 times. Are the teachers that took the training still in our system at every school?
Yes, in fact, last semester we sent a couple of teachers to the training, and that is part of a reading program, and we hope that the teachers, and Mike Stiernan was trained in that eventually we will offer training as a strategy in that area.
Has that been a successful rollout? Is it looking okay?
From what I observed, the teacher that we sent, he's a dynamic teacher. He's at Cleveland, and yes, he does apply the strategies that he acquired from that training.
Were these teachers supposed to help the other teachers at the school?
Yes, they do. They collaborate, and that's another thing. Part of the catalyst is that us encouraging that through our teacher training that we plan to have in the future. Right now, we were focusing on preparing our teachers to understand the IEPs and what they're doing. Our next step would be the Common Core and how to differentiate the curriculum. And then with that, as we continue forward, we are going to start focusing on the reading, because I agree with what you're saying about data. We're looking at our EL students. We have a high proportion of EL students that end up in special ed, so we want to work collaboratively with the gen ed and to ensure that our general education teachers have those strategies. So we want to branch out. Like I said, Dr. Cash said this is bigger than special ed, but we're going to do our part, and then we will collaboratively work with the other departments in order to ensure that all teachers have those type of skills. And the way we're doing it is because we are training our special ed teachers to be the experts. And then once they're trained during PLCs, they can also train their colleagues in the gen ed. So we're looking at many years out, 2, 3, 4, 5 years out.
Okay. And Ms. Adelson, in answer to your sort of comment, I've attended, I think, 3 of the sessions, and I have to say Mr. Stetler does a great job explaining very
Steering.
Mr. Steering, I'm sorry. Mike, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's totally okay because so many people can.
Yeah, okay, Mike.
That's why he grew the beard for tonight.
Yeah, Mike does a great job, very understandable, relates with the people very well. I even learned a lot at the last one I went to for my own personal family. I was very appreciative going through, and I even gave my daughter the information because I thought it was related to her children. So I was very pleased with that. In general, I think Ms. Parker and I were here in 2008. I ran in 2008 in the uproar of special education. We lived through the FCMAT process, and the reason for these forms was to satisfy the desire that we keep track and have people accountable. I have to say we've done that. I think this documentation, sure, anybody can pick apart a lot of it, think a different interpretation. Is it really 100? Is it 95? Is it 75? Are there parts of it that are open to subjective comments? Absolutely. But in the spirit of cooperation and information, I did get 2 letters, and I'll ask both writers if I have their opinion to share them with you and your staff, because they're written in a positive manner of things that they see in the future that needs to be done. And in that light, I personally don't feel we need an update on this again. I think to go from 95 to 100 and have you spend the time to try to prove to us you've gone from 95 to 100. Now, if something goes from 100 to 5, I'd like to know that. And so I would suggest, and just a suggestion, anybody can have their own, is that rather than this come back to us again, that it be kept as a historic document to refer to, and I'm sure you will, but I'd like to have reports on what are the top 10 issues, maybe quarterly. What's on the agenda? What are you doing? How are you planning for it? How are you handling it? What's come up that we didn't know? And what is the emphasis now? So I would like personally to see this be a historic document referred to, but I don't want to see it, I personally don't want to see it come back to say, okay, you went from 95 to 100, big deal. I don't know how you can be that that specific any longer. This is a documentation that if FCMEC came back right now, they would look at that and say, you did get an A. They would look at this, and they did that once. They came in and, you got an A. If they came in and said, hey, we have never been here before, and we're going to analyze your department from day one, looking at totally new, it might be a different story. They might come up with a lot of things that are not on here. But that, I would challenge you to come up with those things and tell us what needs to be done, what help you need, what resources you need, and not go through this method again. That's my personal feeling.
And I'll chime in with a thank you, and I'll echo everything, but I'm not going to repeat what everybody else has said. I do agree with Mr. Herron that in many ways it's time to make this a historical reference document. I think that FCMAT would be very impressed that we still monitor this and keep an eye on it. But there is that piece where I am always afraid, because 2008 was so terrible and the process that we went through over the ensuing years was so hard, that I am always afraid. And I feel like that we need to always be vigilant that 100 doesn't go back down to a 5. And so I do feel that it is something that, whether or not we ever get a report in this way again, that it's something that members of the department are monitoring, more in the sense that I think it's time to take this and look at, okay, what is the action plan for the next 5 years? What is so, we'll keep this, we know that we always need to monitor this, but what changes, things that Ms. Limon referred to, for example. I mean, it was always intended to be a dynamic process, and I think it's time to go ahead and shift forward. One question I had for you is, when is your next CPAC meeting with parents?
Oh, May 20th.
May 20th, so not for a while. I'm sure that they would be interested in going over this document, and they may, I'm sure that they'll want to be part of any process moving forward. What are action steps for the next 5 years? So I will be curious to get feedback. We have gotten feedback from a few, but I think we might get more feedback even in May, when you have a one-on-one discussion and really get, down and get some nitty-gritty from parents directly on it. All right, any other comments on it, Mr.
Just
Herron?
one comment. The next parent session is coming up next week, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, so there is a chance to watch it in action. Yeah, good.
Madam President, I would like to commend, no one's perfect in this world, but there are some hardworking folks over there. I witness it every day. I think I'm probably talk to one or many of them 5 days a week. Would you agree? Yes. Mostly it's happy stuff. And I just want to publicly acknowledge the hard work, Helen's leadership, and the longtime staff that's there, and new people. Thank you very much. We got a lot of work to do, but I think we're really heading in the right direction, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, we will move on to H3. This is the first reading.
May I have a comment?
Yes, Mr. Herron.
This one is scheduled for...
And it's a typo.
It's not 70 minutes?
It is a typo.
If it's 70 minutes, we're in trouble.
Okay. I was going to suggest that we not let Dave sit there for another 70 minutes and move
Well, we could still do that.
We can still move it, but it is...
Move
it's a
H4
pretty big
ahead,
item.
but...
Yeah.
Supposed to be.
It can be as much time as we need, but it's more like 5 to 10 minutes, unless you have
It was
many
supposed to be
questions.
10 minutes.
Yeah.
So-
Is that all right? Shall we go ahead and take it?
Okay,
If
that, I
we're
think
quick
that-
then?
another 10 minutes, okay, right? I'm sure at 70 you were worried.
Well, we do have the H2, Madam President, the RFQP
Oh,
for
I'm
Tatum.
so sorry. I am skipping forward to H3. All right, let's go ahead and move then to item H4 and do the first reading sunshining of facilities use agreement between the Santa Barbara Unified School District and Santa Barbara Charter. And then we will spend more time on 2 and 3.
I'm really happy to announce that we worked hard, and we've come to an agreement. And Dave's here just to make sure that we didn't change any words in the agreement between the last, no, I'm kidding. But we had many conversations, and I know that Meg and Dave also had many, many conversations. And I think what you have before you is a great document that reflects both the give and take that's required in any sort of relationship that you have with a charter school. And I think it's a good document.
Board, are there comments or questions on this? Would you like to make any comments on it?
Yes, I would. Thank you. I just wanted to say thanks to Dr. Cash for what was really an amicable and, I agree, a really positive negotiation in developing this process. There are just a couple of questions that I'm hoping that we can get some clarity on before the document is finalized. At the bottom of page 1, under section 2, number 2, the district reserves the right to move the charter school after the term as defined below if it becomes necessary to do so. I'm hoping that there can be some sort of protective language in there for Santa Barbara Charter School. We actually know that this is a possibility, but given the history of our existence at this facility, which I hope you have some familiarity with documents that we've provided, that there would be some bilateralness to such an action to move us. Only one other thing, or actually 2 other things. In section 4, facilities license fee, when we had our negotiation, there was one thing that we talked about to basically, hopefully, get from the attorney why this does not qualify as a commercial landlord-tenant arrangement. I'm a layperson, so I confess to not having knowledge of this area, but when we looked at this, we looked at it and we didn't collectively have an answer as to why this would be preferable to simple commercial landlord and tenant arrangement, which seems at the surface of it to be the relationship that we have. So we're just hoping for some clarification on that particular item. One other item in here that I wanted to point out is way back at the very back when it lists the addresses of the facilities in the area. It lists the address as Stowe Canyon Way, which I think is incorrect. It actually should be Stowe Canyon Road. So that's just basically a technicality. Other than that, we're very happy to have this arrangement, and we understand that there are increased prices, increased costs for us, but we're really confident that this is a fair arrangement, and we're ready to absorb those.
Great, thank you, Mr. Weissman.
Madam President, may I also make, Dave Hentjonk pointed out that on 11, in section 11A, it should read routine operation and grounds. We don't have them do their own routine restricted maintenance type things. So they're in charge of routine operation and grounds. So we'll just switch out maintenance with grounds if Dave's okay with that.
There was one other section that I forgot to bring up to you too, as long as we're still on it. Let's see if I can find it in, under the routine operations and maintenance, it does talk about the wiring and the sort of the setup for infrastructure for information services. And I'm not sure if this is an overlap or not, but I did want to make sure that we understood that that information services is a service that is included in our MOU that we do pay for. So this may be somewhat duplicative, although, again, if it's talking about hard wiring, since the program is already set up for wireless, the issue may be somewhat moot. Yeah.
All right, well, it sounds like there are some minor revisions that will be discussed and come forward when this comes to us for action. Is this going to be an April
8th.
meeting?
Yes.
Any other items that board members want to bring up? All right, then we trust you to talk with Dr. Cash and Ms. Chate on this and Mr. Hetjank, and we will see this for action on April 8th. Mr. Herron.
I'm just wondering if you want to make your request for a liaison in person.
Only to just let you know that we are very ready and anxious to have a liaison. I actually pick up some of the nuance of Mr. Herron, your liaison with Adelante School, and we think that would be very, very nice to have that same kind of liaisonship relationship. So we're happy to do it, and we'll be receptive with whatever you come up with.
Thank you.
And how was your lottery?
Well, the first lottery, bear in mind that we hold more than one as necessary because we accept applications throughout the year. In the first lottery, though, we did on February 21st, I believe, have our board select the numbers and generated a list that projects out for full enrollment for us.
Good, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, moving back now to item H2. This is the discussion on the release of requests for qualifications and proposals for the development of the Tatum site.
Thank you very much, Madam President. As board members are aware that you were presented in December with a conceptual construct for the possibility of some development on the Tatum site, and post that meeting, it was determined that the best next step was to produce a request for qualifications and proposals to be let out into the business community. And this is the document. Dave Hetjank's here to answer any questions if you have any in particular. I can tell you that the document has gone through a couple of legal cleansings to ensure that we are legally compliant, and we think it fits the bill in order for the board to receive a quality group of potential candidates to present proposals to you.
That's only off by 1,000 years on the board, Dave.
That's good.
All right. What
Any
does
questions
the
or
board
concerns?
have? Mr.
I
Herron?
thought it was very complete. I mean, it's a very good request.
It seems to move very quickly, the
timeline?
The timeline, is that typical? I mean, that all these things have to happen?
Yes.
Okay. And they're
Other
ready for
board
that?
members? Dr. Paz?
Just a quick question on so when you look at the selection criteria, page 8, just curious to know, so all of the items on that criteria are weighted the same, 20, 20, 20, 20, all the weighted 120. Just want to know the rationale for that. You didn't want to necessarily weight something a little higher.
It was difficult to determine which would be more important.
Okay.
That was really how that came out.
Okay, good enough.
That's the most honest answer.
Thank you.
All right, well, as Ms. Idelson mentioned, the anticipated timeline would mean that this is released tomorrow. Is that correct, Mr. Hetjank? I don't know if that's been revised since this was...
No, we put dates in the draft to give you an idea of how long the process would take. If we're coming back to the April 8th board meeting, we would take the dates that are in the draft and adjust them based on the board meeting date.
All right, but it's essentially about a 4-month process.
Yes.
Correct.
From the release of the RFQ to the board's final review.
Yeah, I think we're giving about 8 weeks to put their proposals together, and then there's a timeline in there, of course, for a cutoff on questions and giving us a little bit of time to answer the questions to all the possible respondents on the website, so everybody will have the same information. Where if we if one entity asks a question, the answer is posted on a website so everybody can read it. That way, if they're proposing, they have the same information that somebody else would have.
Okay.
And the only tricky part is going to be the co-location of a district program on the site. Because of the proximity of the railroad tracks, we're going to have to do a safety assessment. And at some point in time in the future, the board's going to have to weigh in on the fact that is the mitigations that have done enough to ensure student safety on that site, even though the criteria has changed since San Marcos and other schools were built in proximity to a railroad. So you have to look at separation barriers, making sure no students can get to the railroad tracks and things like that for an element of safety.
Yes, and I'm sure that that will also be a concern of any developer and for senior housing too, so hopefully it will tie in nicely together. It does not sound, I mean, it sounds like everybody really, in general, approves of this draft form. Is the intention for this to come back on consent for us?
It would be with a revised timeline.
Okay. All right, we will see it at our first April meeting then. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I was so excited to spend 70 minutes on the Common Core State Standards. I wanted to jump to that. Item H3, the first reading of the Common Core State Standards, new math courses. Dr. Cash.
We could still do 70 minutes. As board members are aware, the state adopted the Common Core State Standards, almost 4 years ago now. And we are transitioning toward implementation with Common Core courses in our math. You have participated in numerous conversations, both as individual board members and as a collective board member in relationship to the Common Core math standards. And I want to thank both Dr. Snyder and Ms. Hollister for the great work they've done with math teachers in developing the new courses. There's still a lot of work that's left to be done, other than just naming the courses and providing an outline. And that will include a lot of professional learning for teachers who will be teaching these new courses. And they've got some work cut out for them, but they're definitely up for the task. So they're here to answer any questions that you may have. They did have a 65-minute presentation, and they've accounted for 5 minutes of questions. But at this particular point, I think it's best for you just to ask any questions that you may have generally about the sequence of courses or about individual courses, as opposed to have them go through a presentation.
Board members? Wow. Well, when I looked at these documents, it's essentially, it's not as if it's anything dramatically new for us. It's a synopsis of the Common Core Standards, each level very sort of broadly saying that there will be a plus enrichment version for students that need to go deeper, without specifying anything about who those students will be and what that deeper exactly means yet. That's still clearly to be developed. One question that I had, and that's about, we're using the state of Georgia's units of instruction.
We're using their scope and sequence.
And we're using it for middle school. It says it's for both the Math 7, Math 8, and then the integrated Math 1. And I looked at Georgia's Math 7 and Math 8, and I guess my questions are, do they do it for 6th grade as well as their, it's a real middle school? Is the idea that we will pull 6th grade in and have it be 6, 7, 8 using the Georgia scope and sequence as well?
So actually the scope and sequence that Santa Barbara Unified adopted was from K-12 using Georgia. In fact, elementary made that decision first, and then secondary, 7th through 12th grade teachers, after doing some analysis, said, makes sense for us to follow the same.
Now, when I looked at their course descriptions, what I couldn't find in Georgia was, I could see their traditional sequence, but I can't see the integrated math sequence. And so
At the high school level?
Yeah, sorry, at the high school level. So where's that?
So that is actually the course that you're seeing is an integrated Math 1. they used a different course title. It used to be called Math 1,
Okay.
Math 2, and Math 3.
And now they're calling it what, advanced algebra?
They're calling their
coordinate
first year coordinate algebra. Second year is called analytic geometry or analytical geometry, I'm not sure which one. And then their third year is advanced algebra. So they went with some name changes of their courses, but the content standards for those 3 courses are still in an integrated format.
Okay. Okay. Ms. Edelson?
Question, and this is my concern always, on the A to G requirement application, do you know in advance if that will be a standardized thing that when you adopt this, that will be like a template, or is it going to be you have to invent it, basically, applying for this?
We have to submit to the UCs a new course approval for A through G, for Area C, because it's a new course, and UCs have revamped their Area C requirements for getting high school courses approved in math for A through G or for Area C.
And you're planning to start teaching this?
As soon as you approve them, we'll submit them for A through G, and we hope to teach them this fall.
Okay, thank you.
If I may go back then, because I'm looking at Georgia as we speak, and so it looks to me that if you were talking about using the Georgia model, Math 1 relates to their coordinate algebra. Does the Math 1 plus enrichment then relate to their accelerated coordinate algebra analytic geometry A?
No.
Because that's their sort of compacted sequence.
That's their
so I'm not
high
sure
school
how
compacted sequence, which last time we met, you approved the high school compacted sequence for Santa Barbara Unified. So we could, from Georgia, use some of those courses when we start to build our compacted high school courses.
So that hasn't been decided yet?
No.
Correct.
Right. Okay. All right. Any other comments on it? Then I assume that this will be back on consent for us next meeting.
Great. Thank you, because they want to get to work.
All right.
They have hardly been doing anything.
Yeah.
I told them, well, you'd probably be on sometime between 7:30 and 8 o'clock.
Sorry about that.
Well, it's okay.
Okay.
We did some work
That was me
outside.
that made the promise.
Good.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and now we're at H5, the submission of Santa Barbara Unified School District School Safety Plan for Goleta Valley Junior High School. Dr. Cash.
Well, thank you very much. Mr. Torina is here to answer any question, but this safety plan was left out, and the school site had an opportunity to amend it, and it's before you now with those amendments.
Board members?
I'm happy with the changes. I appreciate it very much. And I know this is not tradition, but you're a new president. If a motion's order, I'll move to approve it.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, this is an item on conference, but we can take action on the conference items, and it's kind of nice to put this with the other school safety plans. So if there are no dramatic objections to that.
It won't be dramatic.
Okay, there's a mild one. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Was that an aye, Dr. Paz?
I said yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. And that passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Item H6, this is the first reading, sunshining of the district's proposal for successor contract negotiations with the California School Employees Association and its Chapter 37.
We have Brian Tangway here to, if you'll recall, this is a matter where you just received notice of it, and so it's before you, and we could have Mr. Tangway read it or into the record if you'd like him to. But it is the cover memo states what we intend to sunshine.
And maybe, Mr. Tangway, if you just want to read the points.
Okay, I'm happy to do that. So we intend to try to negotiate with CSEA improvements to what has been known as the professional growth article in the contract. We'd like to call it professional learning, and really revamp it to make it more attractive to classified employees. We want to look at the evaluation process. That's an interest of CSEA's as well. We want to look at the longevity compensation, bilingual compensation for those employees who are providing translating and interpreting services. We are interested in creating a catastrophic leave bank for classified employees. That's something we do not have now. That's going to be an interesting one to negotiate. I'm going to propose some changes to the vacation leave policy, also bereavement leave. We're going to change the safety article to make it a little bit more accountable. And we are going to work on transfers, vacancies, promotions, and reclassification.
All right. We will be seeing this again at our next regular meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tangway.
And then we're at H7, the first reading, sunshining of the I am looking at, okay, there's different. Sunshine of California School Employees Association, it's Chapter 37 proposal for successor contract negotiations.
So this is their counterpart to our sunshining. This is their sunshining. They've sunshined 15 specific items that are enumerated in the document.
All right. Board members, with that, we're going to go ahead to item I. And we will be sitting that in the future again. And this is return to consent items designated for discussion. We do have two items. They're E4, which is the approval of new management job description, district program specialist, and E10, which is the approval of the MOU with Goleta Valley Girls Softball Association for the use of softball fields at Dos Pueblos. Mr. Herron.
I'm just some general information about E4 as to what can tell us the background of it, and also how did the salary get determined? What was the driving factor between, the salary? I mean, it's just one of those things. The salary, is higher than any of our teachers, and I'm just curious. It seems out of proportion for the job title. Just curious.
Well, all I can tell you is that this is a management position, and it's significantly different than a classroom teacher's position. It's a full-time position. It's more than 185 days. And in addition, the person's going to be responsible for coordinating and managing, which teachers don't do. The job title,
coordinating and managing who?
Implementation and maintenance of technology training, as well as providing, as it states in their data reports for evaluating student achievement, and also they're going to help us evaluate program effectiveness as well, kind of on the macro view. This is the skill set for this is significantly different than anyone else we currently have working for us. That's why the position's here.
Okay.
Ms. Dimon?
Well, I think Mr. Herron actually touched on it a little bit, but I was just trying to figure out between the Hanover and this, who's going to determine the difference of what data report is going to come from?
Me.
So how would you determine that?
Well, I'm going to have, Hanover right off the bat's going to be working on surveys for us. That's going to be their first project. The second project they're going to do is they're going to evaluate the instructional program at one of our smaller schools, provide us with some really meaningful data on its effectiveness. And then the next project that I'm going to have them work on is the impact of the International Baccalaureate program at Harding University Partnership School and the impact of their partnership with the University of California, Santa Barbara. So I've got like a huge list of stuff that I want to give to Hanover.
So what are you going to give to this position?
Well, she's going to, or she is going to do what it says in there. They're going to provide training.
But what kind of reports?
For teachers, they're going to go meet with teachers and say, here's how you can get out data about how your kids are doing, and here's what you can do with the data.
So it's mostly, this person is training teachers
that's
to
part
create
of it.
Their data. They're not.
The other part is that they're going to, I'll ask a question. I'd like to know how many honors students Latino honor students have a grade point average of 4.0, have completed Algebra 2, and are at Santa Barbara High School in Mr. Smith's class.
Can Can I add to that?
Yeah, sure.
So we have 2 student data people right now, but their expertise is in pulling data and reporting to CalPads. So for instance, we get requests constantly from all over the district for data, but all they're able to really do is pull the data out and not put it in any format that's really usable to the person who needs it. So this person would be doing predictive analysis. They would be putting the data in just what we wrote in the description in lay people's terms to actually present to the board. It was something that Dr. Paz had brought up, the need to have somebody like this. And, you know, it's going to really help both of our assistant superintendents of education because they are constantly requesting information and data that we don't have the ability right now to present in any way that's meaningful or readable for the average person.
So am I understanding correctly that this position is going to work with existing data and reporting, and the contract with Hanover is actually a position that would be creating data that we don't have to write reports? Is that somewhere in the ballpark?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what the difference is because they're both doing.
Well, and
I could actually see this position.
And there will be some crossover. So part of this year is really to have an opportunity to evaluate, do we need a full-time person engaged in this process, or will we be able to get what we need through a consultancy?
And also one other thing is that we've tasked our PLCs to look at data. But a lot of our teachers aren't trained in how to pull data out or how to look at data or use predictive modeling. So this person will be working with our liaisons and leads to do that kind of work. And then it's the train-the-trainer model. They could then take that to our PLCs and use Illuminate to get data out that they need that can just drive their instructional practices.
Okay. Dr. Paz.
I mean, because I deal with some of these pieces of my job, I look at myself in my own job and I look at my limitations every day. It's like, oh, I wish I could learn how to do blah. And I don't have that skill set. I don't have a lot of skill sets that you're actually asking for this person. And I was going to say, I hope the recruitment is a good recruitment because that person's going to be really challenging or challenged in their job, and the job in and of itself is going to be a really challenging job. But I do see there's a significant difference between what we're asking Hanover and what you're proposing now. This position I look at as an ongoing position that from the day I came on the board, it's like, where's the data? Why aren't we talking about data? That's what we're really looking for in this position, a position that's really going to give, whether it's the superintendent, whether it's you, whether it's the teacher in the classroom, the opportunity to start pulling our existing data from all the different sources that we have, and including the board. When I ask a question, I'd like to have, and I haven't really pushed to ask a lot of questions because I know we're limited and we've had staff limitation in terms of time. So I would welcome this position a lot. I look at Hanover's contract as much more of a specialized piece, much more of someone or a group of individuals who have expertise in a different set of areas, which is more research related, and really developing surveys, because that was my dissertation. It's specialized. That person may not have that expertise. You'd be lucky if that person would have the expertise to develop surveys. Surveys is not slapping things together and thinking that you're going to get results.
Right.
It really takes expertise, and I have to emphasize expertise because it is a process to develop a survey. If you want valid and reliable data, you have to have the expertise to put it together. So I would very clearly distinguish the one position versus the other. And I'm really looking forward to, if you find the right person and they can do all the things that you're hoping that they do, that would be a great find and a welcome addition to the school district.
Thank you.
Who wouldn't want to work in the Santa Barbara Unified School District?
I have my concern, and I think it ties back to what Mr. Heron raised, is the title. I think that district program specialist is, it doesn't say what this job is. And so that's where I think I struggle with, and the person who comes in may end up struggling because I don't know that anybody that works with them would understand And it could be that maybe this is more, and when we say title, it's more kind of category, and that you would create a title that matches what they do and what they're responsible for. And if that's the case, I'm all right with it. I just want to be sure that there's a flexibility to do that, because I think that teachers will not know what this is.
Yeah, I agree with you. Actually,
We got kind of stuck on the title.
yeah, we did. And
Wasn't what
Mr.
anybody
How
wanted.
about district data specialist?
Even considering that this is on the management salary schedule,
what we could do is, this is a desperate need right now for us. And we could I could work with Mr. Tangway, and we could go back to the CSEA and create.
It's management, but.
Oh, management.
Yeah.
Okay, so we could, yeah.
If you could just look at what other districts call this.
We will do that.
Yeah, that would be great, but I'm certainly willing to go ahead and pass this with this title, with the understanding that you may need to at least on the title side, make some changes.
Agreed.
Yeah, could we put it on the consent with a new title?
Or can we just take care of it now if this is urgent?
Yeah, so my hope would be that you could take care of it now, and we will change the title.
Change the title.
Mr. Tangway will have a new title by tomorrow morning.
Yes.
I would be happy that if we move this forward, for me, it's, your point is well taken, is that we may approve it this way, and the reality is they're going to have a different title.
This is, this is the type of thing that the two-step process probably was built for.
Okay.
Is to get feedback.
Right.
So this is not the typical, just like the last one we did, was much more easy to say, let's vote on it. I have a harder time on this one, but I'll go by whatever the group wants. But
And I would say that I realize that, I appreciate that. This is not just my need, it's Dr. Drotti's need, it's Mr. Handel's need, this is just a huge need, so we wanted to move quickly, especially with Illuminate rolling out. We're going to have access to all this fabulous data that we won't be able to use. So,
how did it get on the consent calendar?
Why wasn't it on action?
Well, you hadn't seen it before. That's why I put it on conference.
So are we?
Or consent.
It was on consent.
Are we bringing this back to action?
Well, what we could do is, because we could pass the item so that you can go ahead and start to advertise it, but what we could do, because we're meeting next week, and we could just say, add a consent agenda that has this as an item with a new title so that we can tweak the title if we feel that we need to. Would that be reasonable?
We used to have a staff member who did some of this kind of stuff. And I forget the title, but it was something involved in evaluation.
I think it was research and evaluation or something
That's
similar.
something like this.
Okay.
But I don't know if it's all encompassing.
That's probably, yeah. I think we need a different title.
I agree.
Well, and I just want to say, as far as the technicality on passing this or not, one, I don't know that passing it next Tuesday when we meet again is going to be that detrimental. And the other piece is that there's a big price tag attached to that. And the piece for me is I would rather see, if folks know they need something, I would rather it be on the action agenda item so the public knows that we're about to approve $113,000 worth of a position. And I would rather it not come to conference if the urgency is that. So just for future.
Okay, this is not extra money. This is money part of my budget for personnel that we tweak things. So this was already budgeted money.
It's still $113,000.
No, I understand. I was just giving you a little background.
So what I'm hearing is that it sounds like we should have an action agenda item next week, along with board policies, that includes this item. And we'll just take care of the whole thing then. Is that reasonable?
Yes.
Okay, we will do that. It will come back to us on the 18th.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
It'll probably be an action item on the 18th.
Yeah, that's what we asked for, an action item on the 18th.
Sorry, I was complaining to Ms. McKay. I got in trouble because it got placed on the consent agenda.
That's all right. E10. Mr. Herron.
Just two questions. With the drought situation that we're under right now, who controls the water that these baseball fields use?
Our maintenance department. We have the ability and have reduced the water usage at all of our sites by 20%, except where this water is being used at Dos Pueblos High School is reclaimed water. If we don't use it, nobody uses it, it just goes to waste.
Okay.
So we have not reduced the areas at DP that are served by the reclaimed water. That would be the lower soccer field, football field, and these 4 softball fields.
So reclaimed water is not subject to drought regulations or usage regulations?
No, it is, the reclaimed water is water that has gone through the process and been treated from prior uses, yeah.
Yeah, but the water, is it our water from our own system, or is it from Goleta Valley, or where's it
It's
from?
from Goleta Valley Water District. It's reclaimed water. There's a line that was put out there to serve the golf course. And we were able, years ago, to be part of that line, just like some of our sites in the city also use reclaimed water. But the city blends their reclaimed water with potable water. So we went ahead and reduced those sites because it will save potable water, and that's our resource that we're short of.
But are golf courses in Goleta just watering their grass and growing it green?
The only, I know of the golf course, Glen Annie. The Glen Annie uses potable water, and DP is on the same line. I don't know about the other golf courses.
Reclaimed.
You mean reclaimed?
You mean reclaimed.
Reclaimed.
But they're not going to govern that usage? They're not going to govern the usage of it?
No. No.
Because if they did govern it, does our agreement give us the right to tell them to stop watering?
Well,
or do we water?
We water.
We control the
Remember,
water.
we're in charge of that.
They don't do their own watering?
No.
That's correct.
No,
Okay,
we're in
good.
charge of, we just ask them to pay their fair share.
Okay. Second, I haven't been out there this softball season, but I was out there last softball season and the year before, and the parking lot is atrocious that is used for those, at least the one I park in is atrocious. Who is responsible for the parking lot or ADA ramps going to the fields? Who's responsible?
Well, the ADA access is legally from the other direction.
Other direction.
And the parking lot has, I was at Dos Pueblos when this deal got struck. So originally, the parking lot was going to be part of the entire project, but they ran out of money and human resources, so it never got done. The district never once, much to my consternation as the principal out at Dos Pueblos, agreed ever to improve the parking lot or the roadway up to, from the parking lot up, or the walkway up to the fields.
But if somebody trips and falls, or whatever happens in that parking lot, somebody gets run over, because the cars are in every direction, they're parked in all directions. It's muddy during the winter time or rain time, if we ever have rain again. Who's responsible?
Well, it's district property, so ultimately the district is responsible. But to improve that parking lot would require not only submission to DSA and accountability for handicapped access, it's also going to involve creeks and Army Corps of Engineers because of that creek right there and how the watershed and how the water is going to flow. So it would be a much more costly and detailed process than just redoing an existing lot.
Okay. Do we have any out in this in case we do get hit with some type of action by some governmental agency or the courts or somebody who comes after us because we're not maintaining a lot in anywhere near good condition?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Well, if somebody comes and says, hey, there's no access for a handicap, you can't get a wheelchair out of the parking lot, you can't
Well, we would tell them, you need to park where there is access.
And they, okay.
And and that whole place is compliant with access.
Access.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I've witnessed often people in wheelchairs coming from the other direction.
Other side. Okay, just so I just want to make sure.
If there's any huge potholes or anything that would be a safety hazard, we would hope to hear from the school, and we go out there with the backhoe tractor and the blade and smooth it out somewhat.
Sometime when you're out there, you might want to take a look at it.
Okay, I haven't walked it in quite a while. I always park somewhere else.
Okay, I will move approval of E10.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Ms. Idelson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that passed unanimously. All right, item J, coming events. We have some joint meetings coming up. The first is on Tuesday, April 1st, and this is with Santa Barbara City College and Carpentry Unified School District Board. And Dr. Cash, at one point you were talking about the rooms. Is that the room that, we couldn't move it here because Carpentry Unified is coming. And so is this the room
I've
that we are-
expressed concern over the room, but I don't get to pick the room.
Okay. And then on April the 10th, we have the joint meeting with the City of Santa Barbara. This time it is going to be at the City of Santa Barbara's Community Development and Public Works building at 630 Garden Street. Our next meeting is March 18th. I'm just going to throw this in here now so that we have these all at the same time. So we have March 18th, a special board meeting, April 1st, April 8th, the regular board meeting, and then April 10th, the joint meeting. So we're kind of busy. Seems like spring break's coming, but it doesn't really feel like that, does it? Okay, item K, future agenda items. Mr. Herron.
It's off the wall, but it has something. It's off the wall, but it has something to do with Ms. Limon's comments during the budget discussion. I'm wondering, so if I can get a report back or something, is it possible to create a special account, like the rainy day fund or the turf fund, but that it would take a supermajority to spend it? Instead of 3 votes, it would take 4 votes to spend it. I'm just curious if that's a possibility, and has anybody ever thought of that?
That's a legal question. We'll get.
Yeah.
That's a legal question. We'll get a legal answer.
That's what I'd like to know. Because I would like to have, if at all possible, a fund of money that isn't just taken. And as long as it's in the rainy day fund as currently projected, it can be taken any minute by a majority vote for any purpose. And I'd like to make it a little bit harder.
Yes, Ms. Limon?
And mine is just what I had said earlier. I would like a discussion item to hear what board members think about possibly changing our board policy to increase the reserve percentage.
I agree.
Okay, no. I would like to see a board item come forward on a recruiting policy, a unified recruiting policy for the district in the 5,000 series. And maybe that's already done, but I don't think so. So at some point, we should talk about that. And anything else? Well, if there is no objection from my fellow board members at this point, I will adjourn the meeting. See you next week.